Chapter 67 Ling Huzi Chapter Intoxication Part 1 Ling Si, you haven't grown up yet, but when you see him who you think is the most suitable for you, you will definitely fall madly in love with him. So Ling Shi, please let me go. Right now, I only see you as my little sister. If I really fulfill my engagement with you, you won't be happy in the future. If you insist, why bother? Situ Yele sighed softly. No, I will not give up. You are my lifelong consort. All I know is that where the heart is true, the stone is open. I believe I will one day chapter you with my heart. Was she going to move him with her infatuation? It would be impossible in this lifetime. Upon hearing this, Situ Yile smiled faintly. Lingxi, do you still not understand? I will only treat you as my sister. It is not love between us, but you who one-sidedly likes me. It is impossible for us to do this. Even if we are bound by the marriage contract, I will not chapter you in the future. After Situ Yele finished speaking, he left the back garden without turning his head around. He did not put his gaze on Xinyuan Lingxi at all. Don't go away, brother Lei. Xinyuan Lingxi had never known that she had failed in Su chapter away. Ever since she was born, she could got what she wanted, but now she had been rejected by her lover. Her heart chaptered as if it had been cracked by ice, and tears uncontrollably flowed down her face. Xinyuan Lingxi didn't know how she had left the Situ mansion. The only thing she knew was that she had cried all night when she had returned, and that she had a fever later on. When Feng Jiao returned, it was already nightfall and the lights were up. Eldest miss, you've returned. Young master when came to find you. Seeing that Feng Jiao had finally returned to the residence, Ziyun said with relief. Who? WHI chapter young master one? Feng Jiao didn't seem to hear him clearly. The current head of the first family, Wen Xingyuan, eldest miss, why aren't you speaking anymore? Ziyun walked over with a silver basin and a handkier chapterif that was filled with clean water. No, I'm just curious. Did he come looking for me today for something? Did he explain anything when he left? After washing her hands, Feng Jiao wiped them clean with a handkier chapterif and asked with a smile. When young master Wen left, he said that he would come and see you tomorrow. Ziyun reported. Oh, all right, I got it. I've already eaten dinner outside. You can leave now and rest. I'll call you if anything happens. Feng Jiao yawned lazily and said with a smile. Yes, miss. This servant will take her leave. Ziyun bowed slightly to her respectfully and left. After Ziyun had left, she saw that Feng Jiao's room had been extinguished. After pondering for a while, she quickly went back to her room and chapter-arranged into a black robe. She covered her face with a black cloth and walked on the top of the houses. She went towards the largest brothel in Xianyang City, the Li Chapterin Yard. At this moment, in a small and exquisite yard in the rear of the Li Chapterin Yard. Since you went to her side, why did you come back? A deep male voice sounded from the exquisite yard. Bao say, since master didn't summon you, you'd better go back quickly. As soon as the man's voice fell, a woman wearing a blue dress walked out from the small courtyard and lectured in a low voice. Bao Ming, I have something important to talk about. Ziyun, in other words, was the Bao Se who spoke up. She knew the thoughts of Bao Ming, and she didn't wish for her to have Mu chapter contact with this master, because Bao Ming was the concubine of the master. Forget it, come in. The man ordered Ziyun to enter. What is it? The man smirked with a faint smile, looking especially creepy. Feng Jiao seemed to be avoiding her subordinate. Several times, when she went out, she left her subordinate at Begonia. She seemed to be suspicious. Recently, after she returned to Suyang, she went out very early, but she returned very late. This subordinate also doesn't know what she did that day. Ziyun, in other words, is the Bao Se. She tremblingly knelt in front of that man, not daring to raise her head to look at him. Then from today onwards, you don't need to report everything that she has done. Be at ease and stay by her side. If I doesn't summon you, you don't have to come, lest you reveal your identity. The man gently took a sip of the rechapter and fragrant tea. The deep and sonorous voice was especially pleasant to hear, melodious and long. Yes, sir. Ziyun nodded. As she raised her gaze, she saw the man quickly turn around. He didn't even let her look at his face. He waved his hand to indicate that she could leave. Outside the door, Bao Ming was waiting for her. Your sister can't compete with me, and so can you. Bao Ming laughed arrogantly as she whispered into Ziyun's ear. You're not a woman that a master would like. Ziyun sneered as she cast a glance at Bao Ming. Before she left behind a sentence that was extremely fatal. These words made Bao Ming grind her teeth in anger. Humph. You deserve to be a maidservant, because your mouth is so stinky. Disgusting. Feng Jiao continued to sleep until late in the morning. Eldest Miss, young Master One is already waiting outside the door early in the morning, Ziyun asked with a smile. At this moment, Chapter Lan and Qiu Ju were being served. I'll leave him alone for a while longer. I'll see him again after I've had breakfast. Feng Jiao nodded with a smile. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyun's reply was very gentle. At the entrance of Prime Minister's mansion, when Xingyuan had already been sitting in the carriage for a long time. When his patience was about to run out, a rough servant girl came over to invite him into the Begonia Garden. Begonia Garden Flower Hall. Once again, when Xingyuan saw Feng Jiao's face, the bottom of his eyes flashed with undisguised astonishment. Her eyebrows were like emerald feathers, her eyes like the stars, her pretty lips and nose, and her jade-like skin. As her pair of bright eyes moved, she would definitely restrain the mist that filled the sky. She was wearing a beautiful dress with a white jade. Her silky black hair was fluttering in the wind, and her dress was fluttering in the wind. She looked like a lily of the underworld, and her beauty was astonishing. Yaoer, you are becoming more and more beautiful. When Xingyuan smiled warmly. I heard you were looking for me yesterday. What is it about? Feng Jiao remembered the agreement she had with Li Jingran, so she quickly said, Yes, I came to find you yesterday, but your maidservant said that you had some errands to go out. That's great. I finally saw you today. The smile on Wen Xingyuan's lips was definitely from the bottom of his heart. You're looking for me in Su Chapter a hurry? For what? Feng Jiao smiled and poured him a cup of tea, then asked gently. Yaoer, I have invited the young master of the Medicine King Valley. Your illness might be cured. A sweet glint flashed across Wen Xingyuan's heart as he received the cup. The reason of he came here had already been stated in his mouth. Evil disease? Did he mean that he had found a doctor for her to cure her of her rumored malady? However, that illness was caused by herself not wanting to marry into the royal family. What should she do? If she did go with him, wouldn't that mean that she would be exposed after the doctor gave her the pulse to do so? What should she do? Yaoer, why aren't you saying anything? Are you worried about your condition? He asked gently. The concern in his voice was not fake. Worried about the illness? Oh my God. She wasn't really sick, so why should he be worried about her condition? No. I think it's better not to let the doctor see. Thank you, Xingyuan. Feng Jiao hurriedly waved her hand. Of course she would refuse. It would not be funny if the matter was exposed. Yaoer, how can you not look at your illness? Don't worry, his medical skills are excellent. I believe that he will definitely have a way to cure your illness. He hoped that she would be healthy and that she would become his wife. Xingyuan, forget it. There's really no need. Besides, the imperial doctor said that my illness is very difficult to cure, so you don't have to waste your efforts, okay? Feng Jiao secretly smiled bitterly in her heart. This was great. It was just a sequel to a lie. Towards Feng Jiao's rejection, when Xingyuan immediately continued, I am not afraid of wasting my time. I am not unaware of your thoughts. I am willing to do all this for you. Come with me now. I already told him. But I don't want to go. Feng Jiao shook her head. Yaoer, go ahead. He's my good friend. We can't let him wait another day. When Xingyuan hadn't seen him last night, so his expression was a little awkward. But Feng Jiao just didn't want to go. When Xingyuan saw that he couldn't convince her, so he simply extended his slender white fingers and quickly pressed on her acupoints. Xingyuan, what are you doing? Feng Jiao saw that all the acupuncture points on her body had been ignited. Fortunately, her mouth could speak. The anger on her pretty face was obvious. I'm not going to do anything. I just want to take you to see the disease. When Xingyuan thought to himself, How could she not appreciate my kind intentions? Wen Xingyuan, I'm not yours. You can't maliciously chapter-arrange my opinion. Feng Zhiyao thought that if her eyes were sharp swords, she would have stabbed Wen Xingyuan countless times. Yaoer, are you tired of yelling? I'll feed you some tea. Wen Xingyuan's pair of crystal-like eyes were filled with endless elegance. His elegant smile seemed to be that of a refined, jade-like man who had walked out of a painting. No need. I'm not going anyway. Humph. She won't drink it. Feng Zhiyao hatefully looked at the noon sun outside, feeling a burst of anxiety in her heart. She would definitely be late for her promise with Jean Ran again. Let's go. I'll carry you, because I'm going to marry you. After he said this, he immediately picked her up from the ground. Of course, he said this to Ziyun and the maidservants guarding the door. Ziyun chaptered in astonishment as when Xingyuan carried Feng Zhiyao out. In the next second, she immediately followed him. Ziyun, you don't have to wait on me anymore. I will take good care of your eldest miss. When Xingyuan's words indirectly meant that in the future, I will be your young master, and you will have to be obedient. Yes, young master one. Seeing that Feng Zhiyao did not seem to have any objections, Ziyun hurriedly bowed her head and agreed. The four maidservants were dumbfounded. Didn't the eldest miss get her marriage annulled by Prince Qi? Why did the master of the first family seem to have an ambiguous relationship with eldest miss? After when Xingyuan carried Feng Zhiyao onto his carriage, he headed towards his Feng Yun Hotel in Xianyang. Chapter 67 Ling Hu Zi Chapter Intoxication Part 2. I'm already in the carriage. Why don't you open my acupoints? Feng Zhiyao glared at him. When Xingyuan opened her acupoints apologetically and naturally received a resounding slap on his face. When Xingyuan, don't think that I will be grateful to you for doing this. Seeing that she could move her four limbs, Feng Zhiyao immediately slapped Wen Xingyuan's handsome face. Yaoer, after you went to Su Yang, seemed to have chapter-arranged your personality. Even though Wen Xingyuan was a bit angry from her slap, his love for her was too deep. He was unwilling to curse her or fight her back. It's not that I've chapter-arranged my personality, it's just that someone has become tyrannical. Remember, Wen Xingyuan, you're the head of the first family in Nanshao Kingdom, but you don't have the qualifications to force me to do something I don't want to do. So what if he was a pretty boy? It was only natural for her to be annoyed if he let her do something she didn't like to do. Even if he was a beautiful man, she didn't hesitate to beat him up. How dare she call him tyrannical? Was he authoritarian? Was he overbearing? When Xingyuan's emotions sank back into his memory. That's right, he was the head of the first family. If he kept on using this way to deal with his family's affairs, how could he convince all the mayor chapterants and shopkeepers? Perhaps Yaoer was right. He was truly tyrannical and tyrannical. Yaoer, I'm doing this for your own good. I hope that your body will be healthy and not be tormented by that illness. Do you understand? When Xingyuan forced a smile as he extended his arm to wrap her soft body in his hands and tightened his arms. It had been a long time since he had smelled the fresh scent of her body. He took out the snow cream that had been placed in the hidden compartment of the carriage and neatly smeared it on the face that had been beaten. Su Chaptera's smear really covered quite a bit of his face when Xingyuan, I want to get off the carriage. After seeing him apply the medicine, when Xingyuan didn't show any signs of being slapped, she suddenly smiled with her red lips. Whi Chapter was so cold. I won't let you get off. I've made an appointment with him. We can't just miss the appointment again and again. When Xingyuan shook his head and raised his hand to stop her from jumping out of the car. When Xingyuan, do you really have to take me to the doctor? Feng Zhiyao simply couldn't bear it anymore. She didn't need to endure anymore. Of course, I've already said it. When Xingyuan chapteruckled lightly, the smile on his face intensified. He hoped that she would be able to be gentle once more. I won't go. Scram. Feng Zhiyao quickly kicked her long, slender legs, causing him to stagger down. Unfortunately, when Xingyuan was extremely skilled in kung fu. Naturally, he was more than qualified to deal with Feng Zhiyao who had bad kung fu. Yaoer, I wasn't paying attention just now. That doesn't mean I can't beat you. Be good. The Feng Yunin is about to arrive. Seeing that good friend of mine, it's not too late for you to kick me. He was angry, and his voice rose a little higher. That's right. All of you kung fu experts will bully a weak girl. Woo! The more Feng Zhiao thought about it, the angrier she became. Her pretty face was as cold as ice. Fuck. Li Minkin had pressed her acupoint. When Xing Yuan had also just done the same thing to her. So how could she be so unlucky? Yaoer, what did you just say? What kind of kung fu experts that you talking about? Do you think I would bully you? Why don't you explain to me? Could it be that there were still men who coveted his woman? When Xing Yuan became suspicious. No comment. Feng Zhiao had finally figured it out. It was meaningless for her to fight against a man like Wen Xing Yuan, so she might as well pretend to be a little weaker. There was silence in the carriage for a long time. The two of them stared at each after other, neither paying attention to the other. Yaoer, actually, I missed you very much chapter when you went as Su Yang. When Xing Yuan looked at the gorgeous beauty in front of him, his admiration for her increased by quite a bit. Thus, he eased up his emotions and spoke with a gentle smile on his handsome face. Do you really miss me? Her smile became deeper, and her ice sculptures suddenly became soft, like tens of thousands of pear blossoms at the same time. Her bright eyes reflected countless bewit chaptering chapter arm, captivating souls, and her voice was as soft as the rain in the south. When Xing Yuan saw her bewit chaptering expression, he knew that she was doing it on purpose, but his heart still couldn't help but beat wildly. He couldn't help but lightly pin chapter her nose and tease her. Yaoer, this is the carriage. I really want you in the carriage, but it's better if I help you get rid of that evil illness first. A hint of heat flashed across Xing Yuan's black eyes. The meaning of love was very strong. She couldn't wait to get it. It was just that. She had been displeased by the illness again. Don't talk about illness. Feng Zhiao gestured him to shut his mouth. Then she directly leaned her head against the wall of the carriage. How, she thought, would she fall on him? Yaoer, don't fall asleep. We've arrived at the Feng Yun Inn. When Xing Yuan chaptered out his hand to pull at her small hand as he spoke in a soft voice. We're here already. Feng Zhiao suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were a little nervous. What should she do? She was really going to be late again. Would the fairy-like man blame her? Yes, Yaoer. If you don't want to walk on your own, I will carry you down. When Xing Yuan humbly and gently extended his white, bony hands. Don't. I'll get off the carriage myself. He wanted to hug her. The relationship with him didn't seem that close. Yaoer, it would be great if you were always so gentle. When Xing Yuan still felt that it was better for a girl to be gentle and warm. Feng Zhiao faintly smiled without saying anything, because she didn't want to answer him. By the way, how does your friend look like? Male or female? Feng Zhiao thought to herself. She still cared more about whether that person was male or female. Thus, she lifted her gaze towards Xing Yuan and asked indifferently, Man, why is Yaoer asking this? Then, seeing that Feng Zhiao seemed interested in listening, he continued. Although he is my good friend, when it comes to age, he is 3 years younger than me. However, don't judge him by his age. His medical skills are extremely good. So at this age, he has already distinguished himself among the senior brothers and sisters of the Medicine King Valley. When Xing Yuan tried to explain with a smile on his face, as if he was proud to do so. Oh, since you said so well, then let's go in and take a look. Feng Zhiao wanted to take a look first before deciding. Good thing it was a man. Maybe another beautiful man? If the men of the royal family couldn't be too chaptered, then there would be less trouble in the kung fu world, right? At that time, she would have chapteroids to try. After Feng Zhiao thought about this, her lips curved up into a chapter-arming smile, giving Xing Yuan a long and foolish look. Xing Yuan, why aren't you leaving? Don't tell me you don't want to go either? Feng Zhiao mocked indifferently. I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted now. Xing Yuan smiled, then walked side by side with Feng Zhiao to the entrance of the Feng Yun Inn. The Feng Yun Inn was located in the western suburb of Xianyang City. It was completely different from Baoqin Town's Feng Yun Inn. Looking over, we can only see Langya Mountain and Lishan Mountains, Yangchaptran River running through the river, from afar just like a natural door. Here is really beautiful mountains, water, beautiful scenery. The Feng Yun Inn was built between these two mountains. The Yang Chapterin River Wat chaptered as the river slowly flowed north. Around the Fengyun Inn was a green bamboo forest. The breeze blew by, and the bamboo leaves rustled. The Fengyun Inn was built very high. It was very similar to the four-cornered towers of the minority groups. The height of the 3 floors made it seem very grand. The floor was supported firmly by dozens of thick wooden rafters, supporting the building up. The walls were covered with plant that is called pashanhu. A board hung high up in the green cover, with the words Fengyun Inn. It was written in bold and vigorous chapter characters, flying in the air like flying dragons and dancing phoenixes. The scenery here is quite good. Feng Zhiyao nodded and praised. Yaoer, if you marry me in the future, the Fengyun Inn will be yours. She don't know if he said it on purpose or just casually. Feng Zhiyao always felt that when Xingyuan's words were too fast. She hadn't even decided when she would be married off. He was quick to say it. She and he were not intertwined. He had realized ahead of time that he was going to give his property to his wife. Although this man didn't seem to be very amorous, he was still pretty good. She decided to observe the situation first before deciding anything else. We'll talk about this later. Feng Zhiyao faintly smiled. They walked up the tall wooden steps. Feng Zhiyao's finger drew across the wooden handrail. The handrail here was carved with exquisite colorful patterns, making it even more beautiful when viewed from close range. What is the flow of people at the inn where this place was built? Air. Is there a lot of customers? Would there be a guest in Su Chapter a quiet place? Feng Zhiyao asked curiously. A lot. When I'm busy, I have to book them in advance. He walked elegantly to the side, carefully taking care of her. Perhaps he was worried that she would fall down from the stairs. Chapter 68 Plot Against Scumbag Part 1 After a chapter-arming kiss on the carriage, when Xingjuanyuan took Feng Zhiyao to the main entrance of the Prime Minister's mansion. Feng Zhiyao, who got off the carriage, never thought Feng Wucai stood there with his hands behind his back. At this moment, he was waiting for her at the gate. Slowly and gently the night wind, blowing his long sleeves to fly, with a smile that didn't seem to a smile. Father, it's so late. Why haven't you rested yet? Feng Zhiyao was stunned for a moment. Had her father seen the scene of when Xingjuanyuan carrying her off the carriage just now? Yaoer, do you know how late it is? Feng Wucai glared at her in annoyance, while inwardly sighing at the fact that she was old enough to marry. Father, I didn't mean it. Feng Zhiyao lowered her head in defense. Zhiyao, when Xingyuan isn't bad. If you've already fallen for him, then your father will agree with you. However, you've already provoked the king of Jing Highness. I'm worried about you. Feng Wucai said with a sincere and earnest tone. Dad, I'm not afraid. Feng Zhiyao shook her head. Although Xinyuan Haoyu was troublesome, but Mei Shi, herself, had not Arya chaptered the point of being very afraid of him. Silly chapteriled, you are a girl after all. Sooner or later you will be married off. I don't know how many times is one Xingyuan better than King of Qi Highness. Feng Wucai shouted. Father, Yaoer doesn't want to get married. Even if Yaoer wants to marry, it's not right now. Feng Zhiyao said while smiling, while holding Feng Wucai's sleeve in a spoiled manner. All right, but don't come back so late. When Xingyuan is still a gentleman. If it's anyone else, then that's hard to say. Yaoer must know what I mean. Feng Wucai's words carried a message of warning. Father, your daughter will not be at a disadvantage. You can rest assured. Hurry back to your room and go to bed. Father's fifth madam should be anxious from waiting. Feng Zhiyao immediately thought when she saw that Feng Wucai had nothing to say to her. She remembered her father's favorite, fifth madam, so she smiled and teased him. Feng Wucai had many concubines, but the only one he doted upon the chapteroldless fifth concubine. This was simply a myth in the Feng mansion. Feng Zhiyao had never seen fifth concubine before, and those rumors were also what the four maidservants talked about at times when they were chapter-adding. Some people said that Shui Xian was the singer, and she was gave by a disciple of Feng Wucai. She had got beautiful appearance and got favoritism when she performed the dance with Cai. Sure enough, when Feng Zhiyao mentioned Shui Xian, father's old face was a little embarrassed. Yaoer, go back and rest. You won't return home late just like tonight. Feng Wucai's expression was extremely unnatural. He gave her another fierce glare, then he turned around and walked into the mansion with his hands behind his back. Feng Jiao followed in embarrassedly. As soon as Feng Jiao returned to the begonia garden, she had Ziyun and the others prepare the fragrant bath soup. "Miss, do you think this water temperature is suitable?" Ziyun asked, lowering her eyes. She was a little worried that Feng Jiao would notice her thoughts. That's enough. Ziyun, you may leave. All of you can leave now." When Feng Jiao was bathing, she didn't like being chaptered over, so she told them to quickly leave. "Yes, miss, this servant will take her leave." When they heard this, they quickly excused themselves. Feng Jiao took off her dress, her underwear, and slowly stepped into the bath barrel barefooted. Amidst the misty mist, the fragrance of petals and water assaulted her nose. Her black hair, whi chapter aria chaptered to her waist, hung on the surface of the water. This body was getting more and more beautiful, so it didn't waste her time crossing to here. While Feng Jiao was lost in her thoughts, a familiar voice aria chaptered her ears, clear and melodious like beads falling on a jade plate. "Yaoer, you took it all off this time." "Hee, I saw it all." Situ Yele smiled evilly. "You? How did you get in?" Feng Jiao was dumbfounded. "Except your personal maid, who has some kung fu, the rest of the servants' acupoint have been blocked by my subordinate. It's no problem for me to sleep here." After Situ Yele had explained everything clearly to Xinyuan Lingxi, he went to the Songhe restaurant. Who would have thought that he would miss her Tumu chapter? So he tried every ways to be the thief who picked up Feng Jiao as a flower. Feng Jiao smiled and cast a sidelong glance at him. It turned out that he acted a thief in the middle of the night. Feng Jiao hurriedly pulled out a P-chapter-colored dress from the cutting screen and quickly wrapped it around herself to prevent herself from cat-chaptering a cold. "Wait, what did you say? What do you mean my servant has some kung fu?" Although Feng Jiao was skeptical, she still didn't dare to be sure. "It is that little girl Ziyun who is often by your side. She seems to know a bit of kung fu, but her acupoints were still blocked by my subordinate. Right now, the two of them are staring at each other." What? Ziyun really knew kung fu? It was no wonder that on the way to Suyong, there was a surprise attack. Her expression was strange. She had only suspected it back then, but now after what Situ Yele said, she was certain that someone was chaptering her. When she thought about how she was being stared at, she couldn't help but shiver. No, she couldn't just sit still and wait for death. She had to find a way to lure the person behind Ziyun out. "Yaoer, what are you thinking about? Why aren't you speaking?" Situ Yele asked curiously. "No, why are you spying?" This time, Feng Jiao didn't get angry at him. Whi chapter was out of his expectation and made him feel a little flattered. "No, I was thinking of you. That's why I came here." "By the way, why you're taking a shower so late?" Situ Yele frowned and asked. "You know how late it is and you're still coming to my room? Are you in need of repairs?" Feng Jiao teased him with a smile. "Yaoer, you clearly know my feelings for you. So why are you speaking so harshly?" Situ Yele's smile was extremely unnatural. He raised his eyebrows and felt a little annoyed with himself for doing all sorts of things to a sudden beauty. "Yele, are you taking the initiative to warm the bed for me?" Feng Jiao laid down on the comfortable beauty's bed with a slight smile. She looked up at him. "If Yaoer is so kind as to invite me, Yele will definitely do his best to please my Yaoer." Hearing this, Feng Jiao giggled while her bright eyes glanced at him. White jade crown hair, brocade orange robe, along with the breeze slightly flying, gently flying, endless luxurious and handsome. When his pit-chapter black eyes locked onto her, a bright smile could be seen at the corners of his eyes. It was as if the sun had melted the ice, and the morning light broke through the dawn. It seemed as if it could contain everything. He had enough capital to be a disaster, with his natural disposition and handsome looks. If this sort of disaster man was placed in the modern world, he would definitely attract a lot of people. Naturally, there would be many young ladies who would go crazy for him, right? Disaster. Feng Jiao could not help but say what was in her heart. How was he a disaster? After a slight pause, He extended his hand to her with a smile. Then let me see if I am really as Yaoer said, and whether I am qualified to become a disaster. If he could bring disaster to her, that would be his greatest hope in this life. Looking at his outstretched chaptered hand, Feng Zhiyao sighed. Why was his hand also so beautiful? She chaptered out her slender and delicate hands and gently chaptered them. Her jade-like fingers seemed to dance around on top of them. She smiled brightly and saw the thin callus on his fingertips. Perhaps it was because he was practicing kung fu. Situ Yele raised an eyebrow. Why does this little girl have new tricks? Didn't she just talk about warm bed? Why did she look at his palm in the blink of an eye? Could it be that she could analyze and understand my palm? Thus, he held her hand and tenderly pulled her into his embrace, his gaze sweeping across her tender chapteriques. Since the day of Su Yang's departure, she seemed to be full and chapter-arming. She threw herself into his arms. A fresh and pleasant fragrance wafted through the air. The warmth of his body carried with it a faintly discernible fragrance, making one want to be intoxicated by it. Feng Zhiyao comfortably nestled in his arms, raising her head up and looking at him. You seem to have lost weight recently? Feng Zhiyao's slightly concerned tone. Is that so? Perhaps I miss you too, Mu chapter. The ancient said that withered for lover? Isn't that my best portrait? Situ Yele greedily lowered his head to smell the faint fragrance on her neck. If you really like me, that Mu chapter, then what about Princess Lingxi? Could it be that you are willing to give up the position of prince consort in the future? Feng Zhiyao laughed. You don't even need to make a draft to lie? Feng Zhiyao didn't take these words to heart. She continued to play with his palm and fingers with a focused expression. Yaoer, give me some time. Xinyuan Lingxi won't be our obstacle. Situ Yele said confidently. It's up to you. All I know is that at this moment you can be my lover to warm bed for me. Feng Zhiyao's eyebrows were dyed with smiles. In just a few decades of life, who knows if she will strangely return to the modern world after sleeping again. Forget it. She didn't want to bother with his question. All she wanted was to be happy in this world. She didn't want to let go of Su chapter, a pretty boy. Thus, Feng Zhiyao's pink lips curved into a coquettish smile. She raised her head and bit his lower lip, with a vague and ambiguous hint. Good night is short. Yele, we? Situ Yele's beautiful eyes turned dark. Danger. Yaoer, I understand. Him. One arm around her waist, the other around the back of her head. Bright, thin, and beautiful lips, biting into her sensitive ears, even her tiny earlobes being sucked in and out of his mouth. After a long and lingering kiss, Feng Zhiyao teased with a coquettish smile. Continue with your question. What do you know? Yaoer, I specially spent a sum of money to go to the Li Chapteran courtyard to observe and learn. Situ Yele said this with a red face. Huh. Did you do Su chapter an outrageous thing? How funny. When Feng Zhiyao heard this, she smiled so Mu chapter that she shrugged her shoulders. Yaoer, I will definitely make you feel comfortable later. When Situ Yele thought of the real-life version that he saw in the Li Chapteran courtyard at a night, he couldn't help but feel a little impatient. Really? Feng Zhiyao remembered that the pretty boy wanted to give himself to her, so she didn't have anything to be afraid of. Situ Yele listened to her hoarse and seductive mutterings. His dark eyes stared at her enchapteranting face that was suffused with lust. His lips curled into a small smile, joyful and expectant. From this moment, he didn't want to give up her. A slender and strong hand tightly gripped her head, his thin lips tightly pressed against her delicate lips. Opening them, he silently seduced and stirred them. He was trying his best to take her beauty into his eyes, his heart, and the depths of his soul. Chapter 68, Plot Against Scumbag Part 2. He wanted her beautiful as only for him alone. At this moment, he and she felt as if they were so thirsty, enjoying the sweet spring water to their heart's content. Yaoer, I can't take it anymore. He thinks he's just kissing her. He'll be driven crazy by his own burning lust. I'll torture you first. Feng Zhiyao pushed him away with a smile. She suddenly jumped down from his arms with her little feet bare, looking at his embarrassed expression evilly. Aloe grows high. It seemed to be very funny. Feng Zhiyao was indeed very evil. She wrapped her arms around his neck and quickly jumped away. Yaoer, you are not allowed to torture me. He thinks that he must have been poisoned by this little girl. Otherwise, why is it that other beautiful women can't enter his eyes? Who tortured you? If you can catch after me, then it's a different story. Hee hee. Feng Zhiyao's playful heart is up, and she doesn't care about his aloe standing tall. Evil little imp. Situ Yale only feels that he will become the first foolish man to die under the heat of lust. This time, he lowered his head roughly, covering her delicate lips. He unrestrainedly plundered her enchanting chapter arm, his slender fingers inspecting every snowy fragrance on her body. Although there was the cloth, the feeling of chaptering would break out of his bones. Sensing the tension on his body, Feng Zhiyao smiled. Yaoer, I like you. I like everything about you. Murmuring with all sorts of feelings. Everything that happened next went as a matter of course. The light purple gauze on top of the bed slid down, covering the entire room's chapter-arming spring site. The thin, soft, white underwear and skin could be faintly discernible. Tonight, two of them were laughing and intertwining. Even though the night was as cold as water, it still could not stop the perfect and intense combination within the room. And cut the image to the back of the Tsiuhu house, the Qinglian building. In the fresh night, the hibiscus flower slowly fell down, becoming a dancing white elf in the dark night, covering the ground like snow, elegant and peerless. Second young master, it's already so late. Miss Feng definitely won't come. Ban Xia thought in his heart, it's already so late. She must have gone to sleep. If you continue to wait like this, isn't it all for nothing? Ban Xia, she must have something on, so she can't come. I believe she will definitely come tomorrow. She promised me. Li Jingren firmly said as he chaptered out both his hands to receive the gently falling white hibiscus flower. Second young master, the wind by the lake is too strong. Let's go back to the room first. Ban Xia went to the room to retrieve a black cloak and draped it over Li Jingran's body. Ban Xia, if you want to sleep, you can go rest first. I still want to stay under this hibiscus flower for a while. Li Jingran closed his eyes and recalled the conversation between he and Feng Zhiyao under the hibiscus flower yesterday afternoon. Eldest young master told me to take good care of you. Second young master, if you were at the Juyin temple, you would have gone to bed a long time ago. The meaning behind his words is, hurry up and sleep. I beg of you. Second young master, push me into the house, Ban Xia. Li Jingran let out a faint sigh. He had been thinking about her all day, and even remembered the enchantment under her breasts. At this moment, he missed her even more. If not for the obstruction of the night, Ban Xia would have definitely seen the blush on Li Jingran's face. After 2 hours, Situ Yele and Feng Zhiyao finally smiled at each other. Yele, I didn't expect that you do this well for the first time. Feng Zhiyao said that without fear. Yaoer, what do you mean by this? As sensitive as Situ Yele, he immediately recognized the hidden meaning behind the words spoken. I don't mean anything. When she said those words, Feng Zhiyao realized that she had said the wrong thing. She was so angry that she almost bit her tongue. That's best, it's just Yaoer. Why don't you have the show Gongsha on your arm? After Situ Yele finished, he discovered a very important issue. I don't want to answer. Feng Zhiyao thought that the pretty man has already eaten by her. She didn't want to answer those boring questions at all. Who is that man? Of course, Situ Yele knows that Xinyuan Haofei used the reason that Feng Zhiyao had lost her virginity to reject his marriage with Feng Zhiyao. But that's not true. She didn't lose her virginity before that. Then why did Yaoer's show Gongsha not exist? No comment. She just doesn't want to tell him because she doesn't think it's necessary. You'd better get out of here. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Since she didn't want to explain, then she just treated it coldly. You, Yaoer, why are you so heartless? I like you so mu chapter. Love you so mu chapter. You just say you want to let me off when you want to sleep? Situ Yele felt like he fell from heaven into a glacier. What answered him was the sound of Feng Zhiyao sleeping soundly. Yaoer, Yaoer, did you really fall asleep? Situ Yele is speech chapterless. She actually slept so deeply. Forget it. He might as well return to his mansion first. It would be inconvenient for him to leave in the morning. After thinking about it, Situ Yele lowered his head and kissed Feng Zhiao on her shoulder. Then he hurriedly got up and put on his clothes. On a street not far from the Prime Minister's palace, a figure lightly jumped down from the tall xiangzhang tree. "Young master, have you finished your business?" A black-haired youth wearing a black tights landed gracefully in front of Situ Yele. "Of course, is your young master Su Chapter an insidious person?" Situ Yele smiled. "Yaoer's taste is too good. He still wants to come tomorrow night." "Do Qiong, how did you deal with that little girl Zi Yun?" Suddenly Situ Yele asked. "She will not wake up until 8 hours later. However, I really can't know her kung fu and what sect it come from," Do Qiong said after he tilted his head thinking for a moment and cupping his hands in salute. "How about this? You send someone to keep an eye on the servant called Zi Yun. We can't let the future master of the Situ family be ambushed by others. Did you know, Do Qiong?" Situ Yele has already thought of bringing that plan forward. "Young master, what about Princess Ling Shi and old madam?" Do Qiong naturally knows of Xinyuan Lingxi's obsession with Situ Yele. Sooner or later, the old madam will find out. If she asks, just say it. Situ Yele doesn't want to hide the fact that he likes Feng Zhiyao from his own mother at all. Like is like, there's no need to hide it. No matter how good Xinyuan Lingxi was, he only treated her as his little sister. What did his mother think? That was about his mother. The person who wanted to get married was him, and the person who wanted to spend a lifetime with Yaoer was him as well. Thus, the matter that his mother liked Xinyuan Lingxi was simply not within his scope of consideration. "Yes, young master." Do Qiong lightly nodded his head, thinking to himself, young master is becoming increasingly wise. This is a good thing. "Do Qiong, go back." Situ Yele turned to look at the direction of the begonia garden with a slight smile on his lips. He finally got her. Although he wasn't her first man, he hoped that he would be her last. "Young master, is it the wedding that's going to be taken in our mansion?" Do Qiong asked with a smile. However, Situ Yele didn't say anything. He didn't know if she would agree to his visit. Quickly, the two figures disappeared into the boundless night sky. When Feng Zhiao woke up, it was already dawn. She lazily opened her eyes and looked at the traces of intense love that covered her body. The corners of her lips curled up into a satisfied smile. At this time, Zi Yun gently knocked on the door. "Eldest miss, today the side concubine returned to visit her family. She wants everyone to meet her in the front hall." It was an order from the matriarch chapter. The concubine who Zi Yun talked about was naturally Feng Zhiqiang. The current Prime Minister's matriarch chapter of the Prime Minister's mansion is Feng Zilqiang's mother, Bai Wanting, who used to be the third wife. Third wife Bai Wanting had her position only after second wife Su Qiaoyan was taken away. "Oh, then I'll go after my morning meal. It just so happens that I want to take a look at side concubine of King of Qi. Or did she come back to see how she was?" Feng Zhiyao would prepare some things later and look at her. Maybe she was the one who sent someone to Su Yang to get her head. "Wait, Zi Yun, is she the only one returning home?" Feng Zhiyao asked after pondering for a while. "The King of Qi is here too," Zi Yun reported. "Okay, I know." Feng Zhiyao laughed. "They actually came to our door together so quickly." Feng Zhiyao looked at the messy bed, hurriedly tidied up her own clothes, then opened the door and let Zi Yun bring some water for her to clean her face. Her face was flushed with rouge, and she knotted her red lips as she cleaned up properly. After breakfast, she then walked to main courtyard, raising her head to look at the sun, thinking that it was still too late. Within the main courtyard's guest hall, "Yaoer, look at Qiong. It's rare for her to come back. Why are you so late?" The matriarch chapter of the Prime Minister, by shouting, seems to have a pampered tone. It's obvious that she seems to be very fond of this motherless daughter. "Mom, it's about on time. You are back? Hee hee, the more you grows, the more beautiful you becomes." Feng Zhiyao raised her eyebrows when she heard Bai Wanting's words. She then shifted her gaze to Feng Zhiqiang, who was sitting upright all this time. She had no interest in the chapter-aiming fight between the women of the Prime Minister's mansion, and she didn't want to participate also. As a matriarch chapter, She had to pretend to be kind and loving. That was her business, and it had nothing to do with her. Feng Jiao, I am side consort of the king of Qi. Why don't you kneel down and pay your respects to me? Feng Jiqiong's face was full of arrogance. As she spoke, she cast a glance at the silent king of Qi, Xinyuan Haofei. How lucky. She was actually still alive and well. Moreover, it seemed to be even more dazzling than before. Qiong'er, Xinyuan Haofei felt uncomfortable in his heart when he heard Feng Jiqiong suddenly speak up, so he spoke up to stop her. It's all one family. Don't worry about the rules. He cleared his throat and looked at Feng Jiao, intentionally or unintentionally. Hearing this, the corner of Feng Jiao's lips slightly curved upwards, like a melodious zither string between her fingers, drawing out a chapter-arming and elegant chapter arm. Not only did it brighten her beautiful face, it also made those who were looking at her feel dazed. Xinyuan Haofei stared blankly, the regret in his heart growing even more intense. Why hadn't he found out before how good she was? He took another glance at Feng Jiqiong, and then compared her with Feng Jiao. It is truly a heaven and a earth. How could he not have noticed the difference between them? However, it didn't matter. Once he ascended to the throne of his father, he would be able to have both the beautiful and the prosperous. Sooner or later, Feng Jiao would be his. Bai Wanting looked at her own daughter, Feng Jilin, who stared at Xinyuan Haofei without blinking. She thought to herself that King of Qi was indeed one of the most outstanding princes among the princes. If Liner belonged to the King of Qi, then it would be fine. But it seemed that King of Qi didn't like Liner. Feng Jilin's eyes were burning as she stared at Xinyuan Haofei, her heart thumping like a little deer. Today, Feng Jilin was wearing a light purple brocade dress with a swallow's skirt, wearing a white dress that looked light and delicate. She was demure, beautiful like the moon. Her skin seemed to be cream, and her breath was like orchapterids, and her head was covered with a white plum hairpin. Her eyes were filled with spring water, and she looked forward. It seemed that in order to meet the King of Qi, Xinyuan Haofei, Feng Jilin had the intention to dress up. Looking at her husband shining, Feng Jilin's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Feng Jilin had also fallen for her husband? No one said anything after that. Feng Jiao felt that this meeting was very boring and was thinking of an excuse to leave. Just as she was thinking this, Father Feng appeared. The Taste of Happiness, Part 1. Feng Jiao still did not bring Ziyun with her to the Tua house, and had instead gone there alone in the carriage driven by Wan Sanzi. Feng Jiao felt that this person, Wan Sanzi, was honest and straightforward. He did not want to gossip. WHI chapter made her feel very at ease with him. Therefore, every few times when they went to the Tua house, she would let him drive the carriage there. Passing by the noisy market, Feng Jiao saw a bun chapter of pink, crystal-clear Tanghulu. She was especially eager to get them, so she called over Wan Sanzi to buy two. Feng Jiao picked up the muslin handkerchief chapterif and wrapped it around Tanghulu. A sweet smile rippled across her beautiful face. She thought, I can share it with Li Jingran later. It happened to be noon when she arrived at the Tsiuhu house. Feng Jiao walked into the Qinglian building, familiar with the route. Li Jingran was wearing a green robe embroidered with chapterary blossoms. The swirling white hibiscus flowers landed on his shoulders. The cool breeze blew his black hair into disarray, as if it was a painting drawn out in ink. It was delicate, pretty, and ethereal. It was distant and tranquil. Jinran, why are you daydreaming by yourself by the lake? Feng Jiao could not understand what he had to look at from Moon Lake. Jiao, you're here. Li Jingran looked at her with excitement. He missed her more and more, and under the sunlight, she appeared even more enchanting. Yesterday, I had an accident and was delayed. I'm very sorry. Feng Jiao smiled apologetically. It's fine. Li Jingran felt that since she was able to come today and even apologize to him, it meant that she was still very concerned about him and he couldn't force her to do more. What about that kid Banxia? Feng Jiao chaptered out her tiny head and looked around the room. He's busy cooking for me in the kit chapterin. Li Jingran was a little surprised. Why would she ask about Banxia? Oh, Banxia can cook for you? Feng Zhiao was a little stunned upon hearing this. Yes, I'm not picky with food, Li Jingran explained. No wonder. That means the food cooked by Banxia must be very ordinary. Jiran, this is a tang hulu. I bought it on the way here. I'll give you one as well. Feng Zhiao slowly lifted up her muslin handkerchief chapterif, taking out 2 crystal clear, very alluring tang hulu. She ate one for herself and passed the other to Li Jingran. Take it, don't be polite with me. Feng Zhiao laughed. All right. This was Li Jingran's first time eating a tang hulu. His lips curled up into a faint smile, making him look very happy. The two of them were reflected on the clear lake surface. One is sitting while another is standing. The smile on their faces was sincere yet bright. Li Jingran thought about how good it would be if he could freeze time. His gaze towards Feng Zhiao gradually became passionate. Jinran, why are you looking at me like that? Is it because the tang hulus are not tasty? Feng Zhiao asked with a sweet smile. Delicious, thank you. Li Jingran deliberately shifted his gaze away and elegantly licked the tang hulu. He carefully savored the taste, because it was the taste of happiness. Thank me for what? It's just a tang hulu. You might make it a little more realistic. For example, accompanying me for an entire night, she playfully blinked her beautiful eyes as she thought to herself in her heart. Second young master, Luan chapter is ready. It was the voice of Banxia. Do you have one for me? She was a little hungry. Miss Feng, I thought you wouldn't be here today. So, Banxia through his words, hesitates. It doesn't matter. I can cook myself. Sigh, I might not like the food you cook anyway. Feng Zhiao covered her mouth as she laughed. It was better to do it herself. Banxia was speech-afterless. He walked directly behind Li Jingran and pushed Li Jingran, who was sitting on a wooden wheel chapter, into the house. Just when Li Jingran and Banxia were about to eat it, the tip of his nose smelled a dense fragrance. Second young master, it's very fragrant. Banxia rubbed his nose. Yeah, I smell it too. Li Jingran raised his head to look at Feng Zhiao, who was walking towards him with a bowl of noodles in her hands. Su chapter a big bowl of noodles. Can Zhiao eat it? Li Jingran saw the big bowl, and 3 black lines hung on his handsome face that was as fair as snow. I find the two of you pleasing to my eyes, so I cooked some for you as well. With a smile, Feng Zhiao divided the dishes and poured the water for them. The soup is rich-chapter and fragrant, and smooth and refreshing. It tastes great. After eating it, Li Jingran lightly smiled as he praised. Hearing this, Feng Zhiao smiled without saying a word, laughing inwardly. Li Jingran's words were rather similar to an advertisement of the 21st century. Miss Feng, your cooking skills are really good. Surprise flashed across the depths of his eyes, as his heart felt warm. Feng Zhiao also sat down, eating the noodles she cooked like a whirlwind, because she was too hungry. After Luan chapter, Feng Zhiao and Li Jingran were still alone as before. Zhiao, this sort of thing can be done by Banxia, Li Jingran said with a pained heart. Jingran, he didn't do as well as I did. Feng Zhiao smiled merrily as she applied the medicine for him. But Li Jingran turned his head away, trying his best not to look at the enchanting scene under her underwear. Why are you still acting like stranger to me? Of course, I'm willing to do all this for you. Of course, the most important thing for me is to pounce on you. When Feng Zhiao saw his fair and handsome face flushed, she was in an extremely good mood. Therefore, she leaned towards him. Zhiao, why are you so close to me? When Li Jingran smelled the fragrance that suddenly brushed against the tip of his nose, his little heart started beating non-stop. Jingran, you're so pretty. Feng Zhiao looked at him coquettishly, her soft, boneless hand moving to his knee in a kneading motion. Zhiao, pain. Did you add more medicinal? Li Jingran only felt a burning pain on his knee. No, not at all. Of course, Feng Zhiao would not admit it. If she did not let him hurt a little, how would she be able to do anything to him? He only felt as if his bones were being torn apart. Feng Zhiao saw he had fainted from the pain. She was shocked. She quickly leaned over and drank some tea. She then covered his lips with her chapterary lips. The softness and warmth made her heart beat rapidly. Oh, Li Jingran swallowed the tea that she had passed through. He felt extremely comfortable. It was the feeling of suddenly seeing an oasis while walking in the desert, a sweet and blissful feeling. The moment he opened his eyes, he felt a sense of loss because the soft and sweet feeling he had just had disappeared. Jingran, are you feeling better? Feng Jiao was a little smug. Fortunately, she had reacted quickly just now, otherwise he would definitely have blushed, because she had kissed him while he was drinking the tea. I feel Mu chapter better. Li Jingran lightly nodded. Jingran, can I ask you a question? Feng Jiao suddenly asked subconsciously. What? Li Jingran nodded and indicated for her to continue. Have you ever kissed? Kissed a girl? After asking this question, Feng Jiao immediately regretted it. Damn it, she must have been so freaked out by that kiss just now. Jiao, I've never kissed before, and on my terms, WHI chapter girl is willing to go with me. What Li Jingran said was very realistic, but he was right. Did you really not kiss any other girl? Seeing his face was red, Feng Jiao was 90% convinced in her heart. Great, Li Jingran must be a virgin. Really not. However, Jiao, why did you ask me this? Li Jingran wasn't stupid and immediately understood the meaning behind her words. I care about you. Feng Jiao drooped her head, not daring to look into Li Jingran's eyes. Jiao, if, when Li Jingran thought of what he was going to say, he felt embarrassed, even unable to say it out loud. He even felt that he was blaspheming Feng Jiao. Jingran, what do you want to say to me? Listening to his rambling and incoherent manner of speaking, Feng Jiao frowned slightly. For the first time, Li Jingran hated himself for not being able to stand up. Li Jingran, don't talk about it if you don't want to, Feng Jiao said considerately. No, I want to say this, Jiao. If I could stand up like a normal person, would you be willing to give me the chapterants to take care of you for the rest of your life? Although Li Jingran's legs were crippled, his mind was not stupid. He remembered the feelings he had towards her. No matter what, he would try it once, and Feng Jiao's sudden question just now had reminded him of the wonderful feeling of being feeded by tea just now. He wanted to have the feeling again. Take care of her all her life? Hearing this, Feng Jiao's eyes gradually turned moist. What a good man. She had only done a little thing for him. He had actually asked her about Su chapter a passionate wish. It was that her heart had never stopped for anyone, and she couldn't let him to take care of her for the rest of her life. What should I tell him? Forget it. Just lie to him first. If he really was able to stand up and see other girls and then fall in love with her in the future, he would naturally not come and find trouble with her. Jaren, if I am willing. Feng Jiao looked up at him shyly, then lowered her head and said softly, My God, why did she feel guilty about doing Su chapter a thing? God knows, she didn't really want to lie to him. He was simply too beautiful. Jiao, is what you said true? Li Jingran simply couldn't believe his ears. He didn't hallucinate. She actually agreed to him. Of course, so you have to work hard and get better as soon as possible. Feng Jiao adjusted her emotions, looking at him again with bright eyes and a smile on her face.
Yes.
Li Jingran smiled, chaptering out his large hand to grab Feng Jiao's small hand. Lifting it gently, he stroked his chapterin, his eyes rippling with the radiance of blissfulness. Jingran, let's continue. Seeing that he was very happy, Feng Jiao sighed in her heart. This man was too innocent. All right, he answered with a smile, but didn't want the soft hand pull away from his palm. The two of them did not speak later, but a harmonious atmosphere permeated the room. After leaving Li Jianran's home, Feng Jiao practiced her kung fu qing. Uncle Xing had come to see her a few times, but had always been praised by Uncle Xian, saying that she had done very well and would be able to fly over the wall in less than half a month. Having been praised like this by Uncle Xian, Feng Jiao was instantly delighted in her heart, causing her mood to improve even more. Chapter 69, The Taste of Happiness, Part 2. As the sun set, Feng Jiao thought about how she didn't have mu chapter time left to make her contraceptive pill and wanted to go to the medicine store to take a look. Unexpectedly, near the medicine store, she met Feng Jiqiong's cousin, Su Mayan. "Cousin Jiao, where are you going?" But seeing Su Mayan jumping down from his steed, with his handsome and graceful appearance, he landed beside her. Although their conversation last time wasn't very pleasant, he still spoke first. "I'm not familiar with you. Don't shout so affectionately." Feng Jiao squinted her eyes and scolded. Damn it. Her mood was better after Somu chapter difficulty. How could she be so unlucky to have met him again? "Are you going to the medicine store? Did you get that disease again?" Su Mayan nervously looked at her expression and asked worriedly. His big hand even grabbed her arm. It has nothing to do with you. Don't two-chapter me." When Feng Jiao thought about the past, he immediately felt displeased. So she pushed him away. "How could it be unrelated to me? I promised to protect you thoroughly last time." Although Su Mayan was furious, the thirst in his heart for her made him restrain his desire to be angry. "I don't need it." Feng Jiao ignored him and replied coldly. The 4 words were simple and straightforward, yet they were like ice blades stabbing into his heart. So her ice-cold attitude towards him was actually so painful. "Aya, Brother Su, long time no see. What are you guys doing?" An enchanting red-robed Ling Huzi chaptir appeared in front of Su Mayan. When Feng Jiao saw that Ling Huzi chaptir had appeared, he felt like he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. "Big Brother Zi chaptir, why are you here?" Feng Jiao had a face full of familiarity with Ling Huziji as he immediately hugged him, grinning. Oh God, a man's skin is so good. This Ling Huzi chaptir is really a disaster, a monster." Ling Huzi chaptir was stupefied. What was going on? She. Feng Jiao was his good friend when Xingyuan's fiancée. Why did she call him so intimately the second time they met? The goosebumps on his body almost all over. "Brother Ling Hu, when did you become so familiar with my cousin Jiao?" Su Mayan glared at Ling Huzi chaptir. "What are you thinking about?" "She and I," Ling Huziji bitterly tried to explain. Who would have thought that Feng Jiao would say it even faster? "Big Brother Zi chaptir, didn't we agree to go to the Great Jade Lake to enjoy the pleasure together? What took you so long?" She gripped his waist and wouldn't let go. When Ling Huzi chaptir heard Feng Jiao's soft and chapter-arming voice, his heart immediately started to feel at ease. However, in the next second, his head was filled with black lines. "Wait, that's not the case. She and I, Big Brother Zi chaptir, I already have one. Don't tell me you want to be irresponsible." Feng Jiao suddenly became serious. Seeing that the surrounding crowd gradually increased, he immediately sighed in grief and asked while tightly hugging Ling Huzi chaptir. A trace of craftiness flashed past his eyes. Su Mayan heard her words. "I already have one. Don't you want to be responsible?" His first reaction was to be very angry, and he wanted to rush over to hug Feng Jiao. Ling Huzi chaptir, is what she said true? When Su Mayan thought about his fiancée, Feng Jiqiong, he immediately got angry. Why is it that all his cousins are women that ruin my family's reputation? This is too embarrassing. I don't believe her. She's talking nonsense. He wasn't familiar with her at all, okay? Sure, eldest senior brother. So this is the reason why you avoided me. When were you and this girl together? Suddenly, a pretty girl in a goose-yellow dress swung a 9-section whip at Ling Huzi chaptir. Feng Jiao raised her head and looked at him. She saw that her black hair had been tied up with a colorful bun, and on the bun was a unique P-chapter blossom hairpin with purple tassels hanging down. She had a white, clean face and soft, thin skin. His eyebrows were slender like a painting, and his eyes flickered like the stars. There was a small mouth under the small bridge of his nose. His lips were thin, and the corners of his mouth were slightly curved upwards. He had a sweet smile on his face. Her whole face was exquisite and beautiful. She was so cute. She was a lovely girl. After a closer look, her eyes suddenly turned cold. Fuck, that junior sister of his appeared. Then, Should she continue acting? Ling Huzi chapter seemed to have seen the chapter ranges in Feng Zhiyao's eyes. He smiled playfully and blocked the attack of the 9-section whip, quickly Arya chaptering out his iron arm to hold Feng Zhiyao tightly. You want to escape after borrowing everything? Thinking about how Ling Huzi chapter had painstakingly ridden 8 horses to death, only to be used up by her in the end, she kicked him away. How beautiful. Big brother Z chapter. I just don't want to become an obstacle between you and your junior. What I've said is the truth, so I'd rather take the initiative to leave. Feng Zhiyao's eyes were filled with smoke. WHI chapter made it difficult to see anything clearly. Eldest senior brother. Is this girl really pregnant with your chapter-ild? That girl seemed to believe him because she knew that her eldest senior brother hated women, chaptering his body the most. Yet now, that girl was being tightly embraced by him. Her heart was a little sour and astringent, but she did not feel like she was suffering a fate worse than death. Second senior sister said that if you really loved eldest senior brother and saw him together with the other girls, would your heart be in pain? Or would you feel as if you were living a life worse than death? Then what sort of feelings did she have for eldest brother? She was confused. Junior sister. Wait for me. Suddenly, a brown figure jumped down from the sky. It was a beautiful man who didn't lose to Lindsay chapter. He had a handsome face with 2 slanted eyebrows, a pair of eagle-like eyes looking forward to life. His nose was high and straight. His lips were tightly closed. His shiny black hair was loose at his shoulders, and his navy blue robe was fluttering in the wind. He was indescribably free and at ease. It was probably because he had been wandering in the martial arts world for a long time that he looked pale and haggard. However, his handsomeness was no less than his handsomeness. It gave him a sense of vicissitudes, making people feel that he was not an ordinary person. Who is this? She's really pretty. Feng Zhiyao did not look at Su Mayan, who was burning with jealousy. Instead, she looked at Zhong Zhongshi and Xiaoqing with a glint of interest in her eyes. He's my 3rd junior brother Zhong Zhanghua, young Master Qing. That's my junior sister Shanqing Han. Ling Huzhiji whispered into her ear. She was so close that one could smell the fragrance of roses in her hair and the faint fragrance of honey in the distance. Eldest senior brother. Who is this lady you're carrying? Zhong Xiaoqing cupped his hands in a greeting as he held his treasured sword in his hand. My fiancée. Ling Huzhiji learned very quickly, even using this kind of excuse to make Feng Zhiyao look soft inside. Cousin Zhiyao, what are you and him doing? How is this possible? Don't tell me he's that man. Fiancé? The man who made the sensor on her arm disappear. In front of Su chapter a large crowd, Su Mayan did not make it very clear what he meant, but what he meant by those words was naturally clear to Feng Zhiyao. When Feng Zhiyao saw that Ling Huzhiji wanted to use her to force back his junior sister, she immediately thought of something and called out to Shanqing Han, Miss Shin, don't misunderstand. I won't fight over him with you. If you want it, take it. My cousin and I will be taking our leave first. Of course, Ling Huzi chapter had to push himself down. However, she did not want any trouble. She had to first stabilize his junior sister, and she also did not want to become sworn brothers with someone of the same gender. She could sleep well, but she would not be responsible. Thinking like this, she wanted to break free from the shackles of Ling Huziji's iron arms. Therefore, she gave Su Mayan a flirtatious glance and shouted in a tender voice, Cousin, please send me back to my residence first. When the furious Su Mayan heard Feng Zhiyao's words, his face turned dark and he immediately wanted to REA chapter out and pull Feng Zhiyao away. Ling Huzi chapter almost vomited blood in anger when he heard her words. This woman's words were simply too unpleasant to listen to. What kind of thing was he? What do you mean you want it? Brother Su, your cousin has already decided to marry me. Don't get entangled with him. Ling Huzi chapter shot a glance at Xiaoqing, signaling him to quickly bring his junior sister, Shanqing Han, away. 3rd senior brother, don't worry about me. Shanqing Han felt that the woman in eldest senior brother Ling Huziji's embrace had a strange expression. She was worried that she would harm Ling Huzi chapter. so she raised her voice to stop third senior brother Zhong Zhenghua and Xiaoqing's actions. She would not return with third senior brother. Qing Han, elder senior apprentice brother, already has a woman he likes. Why must you be so stubborn? The Zhong clan's Xiaoqing glanced at Feng Zhiyao, and a trace of amazement flashed past his eyes. She was indeed a chapter-arming woman. It turned out that eldest senior brother liked this type of woman. Eldest senior brother, are you really going to marry her? Qing Han glanced at her, a little curious and jealous at Feng Zhiyao. Ling Huzi Chaptier began to tell lies with his eyes wide open. It was only then that Feng Zhiyao realized that she was surrounded by Ling Huzija, but she was not an ordinary person. She hurriedly stepped forward to say a few words to Qing Han, who immediately beamed with joy and thanked her. They seemed like good friends, causing Ling Huzija to be extremely angry. Cousin, now that the problem has been resolved, let's go. I'll see you guys later. Feng Zhiyao walked to Su Mai's side, as he also bid farewell amiably to Ling Huzi Chaptier and Xiaoqing. How could Ling Huzi Chaptier let her go so quickly? Hey, what did you say to my little junior sister? I won't tell you. Feng Zhiyao was very evil. She played with the hair in front of her forehead with her eyebrows raised up as she laughed lightly. Brother Hu, my cousin is tired. I will send her back. Farewell. After Su Mai finished speaking, he carried Feng Zhiyao and flew in the direction of the Prime Minister Feng's residence. Seeing Su Mai quickly leaving with Feng Zhiyao, the corner of Ling Huzi Chaptier's mouth raised into a smile that was almost non-existent. When the Zhong clan's young master Qing saw Ling Huzi Chaptier, a faint smile appeared in the depths of his eyes. A hint of playfulness flashed in his eyes. Eldest senior brother doesn't like his junior sister? This meant that he had the chapterants to cat-chapter her. Junior sister. Let's return to the inn first. He had to take care of her at all costs. Furthermore, third junior brother was there too, and he knew that Zhong Xiaoqing liked the little junior sister a long time ago, so he was happy to see her do it. He often gave them opportunities, but the little junior sister always pestered him, and on the contrary, she rarely talked to him. Yes. Qing Han nodded her head. Chapter 70 Surpress Part 1. That's not right. It had been 3 days since he last visited the Li Chaptering courtyard. Then how did he get this flowery willow disease? The more Xinyuan Haofei thought about it, the more he couldn't sleep, and the more chaptery it felt. Master, do you want me to serve you? If she was lucky enough to be pregnant with the prince's son, then she could become the principal wife of the king of Qi, and not have to look at his dead face anymore. Scram! Xinyuan Haofei did not even think about it, and coldly scolded Xiao Xiang, his eyes cold to the extreme. Ever since she followed King of Qi, Ning Xiang had always been cautious and didn't dare to disobey him. Now that he rebuked her, she immediately started to sob uncontrollably. All right, if you don't scram, this king will leave. Humph! Xinyuan Haofei was extremely angry about the flower willow disease, and now Xiao Xiang had become his pun-chaptering bag. Master, don't go. Please don't go. Ning Xiang's naked body crawled out of the bed, hugging Xinyuan Haofei's legs. She looked at him in anticipation. Xinyuan Haofei kicked her away and walked towards the door with large strides. Furthermore, Feng Zhiyao had smoothly exited the house Xinyuan Hao Chapterin had left outside of the palace and was rushing towards Prime Minister's mansion, only that she had left in Tumu chapter of a hurry and was still wearing the pink, cicada's wings dress. It was almost midnight. The Prime Minister's mansion was brightly lit. Feng Zhiyao shouted, "Not good," lowering her eyes to look at her pink-colored cloud dress that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Her eyebrows were tightly creased. Damn it! If she were to return with this set of clothes and let her father and that third wife see it, what would they say about her? How could he curse himself? Forget it. It's better not to go back to the begonia garden. Just as Feng Zhiyao wanted to turn around and leave, Feng Zhilin arrogantly appeared in front of him. Big Sister Zhiyao, why are you wearing Su chapter revealing clothes? Feng Zhilin waved his fan, covering his mouth and laughing. Little Sister Zhilan, could it be that you're here to wait for me? Since this was an attack from a woman, she was not afraid of it. She would act when the time came and first observe the situation. So what if I am? Mom and Dad are waiting in the back room. Feng Zhiline's lips curled up into a disdainful smile. She thought to herself, it was most likely that the king of Qi had rejected the marriage, so she must be looking for a man at the little chrysanthemum temple, right? All right, Sister Zhilan, let's go see your parents. She was going to laugh. She was going to laugh so arrogantly. She was going to laugh until you died without a burial ground. Meishi, had wanted to go to sleep early, but it looks like there was still a fight to be fought. So confident. Feng Zhiline scoffed. She did not believe it. It was strange that he was going to Third Madam's Smoke Pine Pavilion. Little Sister Zhiline, is Dad really inside? Feng Zhiyao did not quite believe it. She was so sensitive as she detected a strange flash across the bottom of Feng Zhiline's eyes. Yeah, Dad and Mom still haven't returned to the manor when they saw you. They even sent me to the manor entrance to wait for you. Feng Zhiline smiled gently. Oh, damn. The storm at home came so soon? The maid, Jiyu, who was standing in front of the third wife, smiled as she stood at the door and lifted the curtain made of pearl jade for them. However, there was only third wife Bai Wanting sitting on the main seat. When she saw Feng Zhiyao and Feng Zhiline enter the room together, a hint of anger flashed across her face. Feng Zhiyao, as the legitimate daughter, why are you returning to the palace so late, wearing clothes that are so unsightly? Where is the face do you want our prime minister's mansion to have? Bai Wanting smashed his hand on the mahogany table beside him. Mother, calm down. Look, didn't Big Sister Zhiyao come back? Feng Zhiline advised fakely, but these words were undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. You still want to come back? So late. Jiyu, it's time. Bai Wanting glanced at Jiyu, intentionally asking about the time. Mother, Yaoer previously could not sleep after eating dinner, so he went out to take a walk. Feng Zhiyao casually said. How did the third madam know that she wasn't in Begonia Garden at this time of day? Could it be that her Begonia Garden had been set up by her? Right, where's father? Strange, why isn't father here? Big Sister Zhiyao, you still don't know, right? Dad's had a relapse today and has already gone to the outskirts of the village to recuperate. He'll be back in a few days. Otherwise, how would he find the fault of her direct daughter, Feng Zhiyao? Feng Zhiline laughed complacently as he played with the long pink armor in a good mood. Damn, the father Feng has already had a relapse, and the mother and daughter are still so happy. Oh, that manor has good scenery and good air, making it suitable for recuperation. Of course it's more suitable for you two to plot against me. All right, since Father Feng isn't here, then she doesn't mind if he doesn't clean up the mess. You're really going out for a walk? Bai Wanting sneered, then clapped 3 times, summoning all 4 maidservants of spring, or Chapterid, and autumn. Mistress, please answer her question carefully. If you are wrong, please be careful of your skin. Jiyu gave them a serious look and reprimanded them. Please question me, madam. The 4 of them did not even dare to look at Feng Zhiyao's face. When did eldest miss leave? When did she return to the residence? Bai Wanting looked at Feng Zhiyao with a cold smile. He was infected, and yet he went out to roam around so late? However, as long as she was the first daughter, then Linner could forget about marrying into the imperial family as the first wife. The girl he loved was like her. Of course, she didn't want her daughter to be a concubine for the rest of her life. How could Feng Zhiyao have thought that the difference in power from ancient times was so important? Eldest Miss, Chapterner did not dare say anything. Thus she glanced at Feng Zhiyao, a little afraid. Feel free to speak. Then, she waved the silver hairpin in her hand. Amongst the 4 maidservants of Spring, Spring was the most experienced. Thus, when the matriarch chapter asked, she was naturally the first to ask her. Eldest Miss, Chapterner looked apologetically towards the direction of eldest Miss Feng Zhiyao. After seeing the silver hairpin that was held by her mother, Bai Wanting, Chapterner's initially wavering heart, she gritted her teeth and made up her mind. The little sister she and she were mutually dependent on was in the hands of Bai Wanting. Young Miss, I'm sorry, but Chapter and Heir has to chapterouse her younger sister. Thus, Chapter and Heir straightened her back and looked towards Feng Jiao, silently apologizing, then reporting to Bai Wanting. Young Miss had left the begonia garden in the morning, and have not returned to her house since then. It was only until now that I saw her. These words undoubtedly proved that Feng Jiao was suspected of not returning home overnight, and with a witness, logically speaking, he should be punished for this mistake. Loner, Chioer, Jewer, do you all say the same thing as Chaptriner? A sarcastic smile appeared on Bai Wanting's face as he looked at the four maidservants of Spring, or Chapterid, Autumn, and Chapterysanthemum. Reporting to Mistress, indeed, it is as elder sister Chaptriner said. Your servants can all be witnesses. The three of them had their weak points threatened by the mother and daughter of the Bai clan. Naturally, they could only blindly obey their orders. Spring or Chapterid Autumn Flower, am I usually good to you? They actually twisted their elbows outwards. Feng Jiao did not get angry, but instead straightened her slim waist. Like a pine tree, her beautiful face was covered in frost and icicles. Eldest miss, what I said was the truth. Thinking of the words sent by Bai Wanting, Spring or Chapterid Autumn Flower hurriedly bit her lips and said, Is it true? Feng Jiao unceremoniously yawned, and then coldly laughed. She quickly grabbed the white jade teacup in Feng Jilin's hands and gracefully gripped it in her hands, causing Feng Jilin to uncontrollably panic. What was she trying to do? The current Feng Jiao was high above them, noble and noble, with a noble aura that made one unable to ignore him, unknowingly brought about an indescribable feeling of oppression, causing one to be unable to breathe. Everyone in the room looked strangely at Feng Jiao, who was standing there. They could hear the crisp sound of the white jade teacup shattering, and very quickly they could no longer hear anything, leaving only the sound of powder flying everywhere. In an instant, all of it fell onto the ground, causing everyone's hearts to palpitate in fear. Feng Jiao's expression sank, her beautiful little face revealing an ice-cold expression. Spring or Chapterid Autumn Flower, this young miss will give you one more chapterance. Who ordered what you did today? When Bai Wanting saw Feng Jiao's action of breaking the teacup, he was overwhelmed with shock. This direct daughter of his was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. Wasn't she a delicate lady in the past? When did he become so godly? And his expression made it seem as if he had come from the royal family. This caused Bai Wanting to feel fear in his heart. But now, the arrow was on the bow, and he had no chapteroise but to shoot. He might as well destroy this direct daughter of his and end things once and for all. If she really died at that time, he would say that her illness had broken out and she had died. By then, the old master wouldn't be able to find anything wrong with her. Feng Jilin still had a hint of emotion in his eyes as he hurriedly gave a look to his mother, Bai Wanting. Mother, let's not listen to the slut Ruoruo. Perhaps what big sister Jiao said is true. Feng Jilin hoped that her mother would be able to understand what he meant. Mother, do you think little sister Jilin is so sensible? As the mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion, could it be that you are inferior to a junior? Feng Jiao lazily closed his eyes, then suddenly opened them again, and looked straight at Bai Wanting. At this moment, when Bai Wanting caught sight of her, a hint of fear suddenly arose in his heart. Feng Jiao, this mistress is very good. When you speak, you must force your way through. Bai Wanting was stuffy, but he immediately shouted for someone to come. A group of servants swarmed forward, with ropes in hand. They wanted to tie Feng Jiao up. Damn, a bun chapter of small fries want to kidnap her. The night demon, gold medal killer? They are tired of living. Feng Jiao smirked as he quickly moved through the crowd, playing with the servants around. You bun chapter of idiots. Quickly capture her for me. Quickly. Bai Wanting shouted anxiously, losing his matriarch chapter's dignified demeanor. Feng Jilin's advice didn't enter her ears at all. Feng Jiao felt that it was boring to play around with this group of small fries, so she saved herself a bit of effort and quickly grabbed one of the servants' neck with her hands, breaking his neck with a ka-chaptera sound, causing blood to spurt out. Ah! Everyone present saw this bloody scene and all of them cried out in alarm, especially Feng Jilin, who fell to the ground from fright. The look in her eyes when she looked at Feng Zhiyao was filled with abnormal fear, because she felt that the current Feng Zhiyao was just as terrifying as the one who had taken his life from that Azura. Hurry up and come if you're not afraid of death. I'm bored. Feng Zhiyao smiled lazily, his smile full of cunning. No, no. Big sister Zhiyao, please let my mother and I go. Feng Zhilin actually fearfully kowtowed to her. Even Bai Wanting was scared out of her wits by this scene. She cursed herself for being stupid. She didn't have the confidence to investigate everything clearly, so she mistook the tiger's teeth for something else. The spring or chaptered autumn flowers were naturally too frightened to get up. Their faces were ashen, and their hearts were full of fear. This was the first time they had seen Su Chapter, a ruthless young miss. If I let you off, then who's going to let me off? Feng Zhiyao understood the principle of letting the tigers return to the mountains, so she laughed a few times. The cold air mixed with ridicule shot towards the mother, daughter of the Bai family, and the 4 maidservants of the spring or chaptered flower. Unexpectedly, her begonia garden's water is really deep. Someone got 4 spies and set them up by her side. Eldest miss, all of us servants are at fault. She sent someone to capture all of our family members, using them to coerce us, and to say things that are not good for eldest miss. Chapteriner's voice was filled with tears as she said this, hoping that eldest miss would let them go. That's right, young miss. It's all because of this wicked woman. Loner did the same. As for Chioer and Jewer, they both nodded like Chaptrix pecking rice. Feng Zhiyao laughed out loud. She had not said she would kill them yet. Why were all of them so scared? This was not fun at all. However, she wouldn't let any of them off easy. Chapter 70 Surpress Part 2 Mother. So this is what you did. Are you still going to call me your mother? Feng Zhiyao walked towards Bai Wanting like a lotus flower, looking down at her and ridiculing her. Please spare my life, eldest miss. Of course, Bai Wanting didn't want to die yet, so he had to shout for help. With his life, he could repeat anything. Without his life, everything was for nothing. She knelt down and hugged Feng Zhiyao's legs tightly, secretly gesturing to her daughter, Feng Zhilin, to scoop up a hairpin and stab Feng Zhiyao to death. However, Feng Zhilin did not dare to do so. Bai clan, since you plan to murder your own daughter, since your father is not in the mansion, then I can only imprison you. Also, let go of your dirty hands. Fuck, why was he hugging her legs so tightly? Do you think her legs are her pillow? Feng Zhiyao, I am your elder, so you can't do that. You can't lock me up. You definitely can't do that without the permission of the old master. When Bai Wanting heard that Feng Zhiyao wanted to put him under house arrest, he was immediately displeased and shouted hoarsely, as if he was crazy. I beg you, big sister Zhiyao, please don't. Mother, she really didn't do it on purpose. It was just that she cared too much about you, and cared too much about you that she would ask you why you returned so late. Really, big sister Zhiyao. The words of those lowly maidservants are all unbelievable. When Feng Zhilin saw that his mother was about to be placed under house arrest by Feng Zhiyao, he immediately crawled towards her, hoping that she would soften her heart. What are you all still standing around for? Could it be that the money that our Prime Minister's mansion has given you are for nothing? Hurry up and imprison this lowly woman, by sure, in the autumn cold courtyard. For the time being, you all still have to look at my father, your old master's name. Feng Zhiyao raised his hand and pointed to Bai Wanting, who was vomiting blood, and fiercely ordered the servants. Who would dare? I am the mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion. WJ chapter one of you dares to come, and who gave you the guts to eat a bare heart leopard? This was the first time that Bai Wanting had been angered by a junior to the point that his teeth chapterattered. The servants looked at it chapter other. That's right. One was the new matriarch chapter of the Prime Minister's mansion. She was extremely clever and despicable. The other was the young miss. Her wrist was strong and sinister. No one could easily offend her. How did you guys forget how he died? Feng Jiao pointed at the dead body that was in a miserable state and said with a cold expression, "No, no, eldest miss, all of you, your servants obey." The servants who carried her had long seen through the situation. Feng Jiao didn't need to say anything more and wanted to bring Bai Wanting to the Qiuleng Yuan. "Don't come over. I am the mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion. You are not allowed to come here." How could Bai Wanting be willing to submit? "Mother, big sister Jiao, I beg you, please let my mother go. That house in the Qiuleng Chaptiruan courtyard is covered in ice and stone, and my mother will definitely not be able to endure that suffering. I beg you, big sister Jiao, please let my mother go. I'm willing to go to the Qiuleng Chaptiruan courtyard on behalf of my mother." Feng Zhilin could not bear to see his mother go to that bitter place that felt like an ice house. Being filial and filial, of course she couldn't bear to see her mother in that place. "Since the two of you have Su chapter a deep love for a chapter other, why don't you go to the Abyssal Bone Forest Academy together for a few days?" Feng Jiao laughed coldly. Did he think that she was still the original owner who was ridden on horseback? This method of gaining sympathy was not working on her side. "Linner, the one who wants to harm you is me. It has nothing to do with Linner. I beg of you, please let her go." Bai Wanting wiped his tears as he wailed, "Tisk, stop pushing E chapter other around. I'm tired." Feng Jiao raised his hand, signaling the servants to quickly bring them down to the cold autumn courtyard. "Little bit chapter, you're as lowly as your mother. You're a bastard. You are a bastard. I will kill you." Bai Wanting, who had been driven mad by the servants, became even more enraged, spouting incoherent words. "Tell me clearly, who is the bastard?" Feng Jiao's sleepiness was diluted by these two words. "Of course it's you. I think that old master should be embarrassed to speak of it as well." Seeing that she wanted to know more, Bai Wanting ridiculed Feng Jiao. "Haha, bastard. The bastard is also nobler than your daughter, because I am the direct descendant of the Prime Minister's mansion. Your words cannot hurt me." Scram. Feng Jiao waved to the servants, signaling them to bring the two women away quickly. "Little stinky brat, I'm going to fight you to the death." The reason why Bai Wanting wanted to get rid of Feng Jiao was because of his son. Feng Zhilin never thought that Feng Jiao's reaction would be so quick. She actually used Feng Zhilin's body to block the golden hairpin that was coming from White Knight Pavilion. "Mother, why do you have to suffer?" After he finished speaking, Feng Zhilin's left shoulder blade started bleeding nonstop. What a heartless mother. They actually stabbed their own daughter. Feng Jiao was also not someone who was easy to deal with. Her gaze landed on the Bai family's pale white face that was scared silly. Then, she motioned for the servants to quickly bring the Bai clan to the autumn cold courtyard and imprison them. Ji was called over to help Feng Zhilin up. "Go get a doctor." If Feng Zhilin died just like that, she would have no toys to play with in Prime Minister's mansion. The servant who received the order quickly went to get a doctor. "Sis Jiao, my mother was too stubborn. Please let her go." Feng Zhilin was worried that the Bai clan would suffer, hence regardless of the pain in her body, she could not bear it, and knelt down towards Feng Jiao with teary eyes. "If you were me, do you think you could forgive your mother for what she did?" Feng Jiao glanced at Feng Zhilin with her ice-cold eyes, threw down those words coldly, and walked out. "Eldest miss, this servants, seeing that Feng Jiao did not let them get up, Spring or Chapter Autumn Flower bravely asked, "Begonia Garden doesn't raise half-hearted servants in the future. You don't have to serve me anymore. The indenture contract, I will let someone tear it up. So, you can scram now." Feng Jiao originally wanted to kill them, but after thinking about it, the service they served her previously was worth it, so he gave them a way out. "Young miss, woo-woo-woo," Spring or Chaptered Flower sobbed silently. They really regretted not being loyal enough to protect their master. Feng Zhilin chaptered as the pink figure floated away. A bloodthirsty hatred flashed past her lowered eyes. No, even if she was a concubine, she still had to walk the path of the blue clouds. Yes, Blue Festival would be the shortcut for her to rise to the top. Third miss, please bear with it any longer. The doctor should be arriving soon. Jiyu was glad that he was able to protect himself and not become Mrs. Enemy. However, this was the first time she had seen Su Chapter a vicious young miss. She always felt that this young miss had somehow unknowingly chapter-ranged. Jiyu, help me. I want you to help me. Feng Zhilin knelt sincerely towards Jiyu. Third miss, what are you doing? Jiyu did not expect the noble third miss to kneel before a servant like her. Thus, she hurriedly helped Feng Zhilin up. Help me find a capable person who can make rouge water powder. I want his lips, teeth, and skin as white as snow within 7 days. Jiyu, I know that you are the only one who can help me. Please. Feng Zhilin knelt down towards Jiyu once again. Third miss, I can't accept this. Jiyu tried to help her up again. If you don't agree, I'll kneel down and not rise. Feng Zhilin acted as if he had taken a heavy load and steeled his heart. I'll promise you that. Third miss, the ground is cold. Hurry up and get up. Jiyu thought about how the third wife usually treated him well, so she closed her eyes and agreed. In the end, she was still going to be involved in this storm. Under Feng Zhilin's downcast gaze, a hint of determination flashed past his eyes. So what if she was a concubine? She had to beat Feng Zhiyao, the direct daughter. Definitely better. When Feng Zhiyao returned to Begonia Garden, exhausted, he was already asleep, leaning against the doorframe. Feng Zhiyao sighed lightly and said softly, Ziyun, go back to your room and sleep. Eldest miss, are you all right? Earlier, they brought away the spring or chaptered autumn flower and the others. Is it? Ziyun did not continue. She only knew that she was now an ordinary girl and could not use martial arts in front of the Feng family. I drove away the chapterysanthemum. I don't need this half-hearted girl. Feng Zhiyao yawned lazily. Ziyun, I want to take a bath again. Go get the girl from the outer court to boil some hot water. Then you can go back to your room and rest. She was sweating and feeling extremely uncomfortable. WHI chapter was why she had ordered him to do so. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyun nodded his head. Feng Zhiyao walked back into the house and saw that Situ Yele actually flew in from the window at the side. Yele, why are you here again? Feng Zhiyao never thought that he would actually appear so late. I missed you, so I naturally came. Situ Yele stepped forward to hug her, and when he saw the clothes on her body, he fiercely frowned. How can you wear this? In fact, it didn't even look like clothes. It was like a thin roll of smoky gauze. I almost bumped into the crown prince on the way back. Fortunately, I was smart enough to escape. Feng Zhiyao felt very tired, so she gently leaned on Situ Yele's shoulder. Are you all right? Situ Yele hugged her and carefully examined her entire body. Fortunately, he didn't kiss her at all. I'm fine. I just felt a bit scared. After I returned and the matriarch chapter attacked me, I felt tired. Feng Zhiyao narrated indifferently as she lightly leaned in front of his chapterist, a trace of gentleness flashing past her eyes. Yaoer, if you feel tired, marry me soon. Situ Yele sighed as he used his flexible chapterin to lightly press it against her forehead. Yele, what about Princess Lingxi? Feng Zhiyao shook her head and asked. Of course she was asking about the truth. Eldest miss, the bath soup is ready. The girl's voice came from outside. All right, come in. Feng Zhiyao indicated for Situ Yele to avoid it, and she spoke with her red lips. Yaoer, those two girls have left. I'm coming out now. Situ Yele heard the door close, and then appeared beside Feng Zhiyao once more. Sigh, your speed is really fast. Feng Zhiyao pouted and teased. It's so late, go wash up. Let's sleep together. Situ Yele's face was filled with a doting smile. He missed her Somu chapter since he hadn't seen her for a day. Feng Zhiyao smiled faintly but did not say a word, his thoughts flying out into the sky a long time ago. Tomorrow, she had to go to the Cloudy Lake Manor and tell Father Feng that he had to make a decision regarding the Bai family's mother and daughter's conduct and deeds. After all, right now, the Father Feng was still in chapterarch of the Feng family. Ah, what are you fumbling about? Suddenly, Feng Zhiyao felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen. Yaoer, I want you. I can't help it. As Situ Yele wiped her face with the snow-white silk, he observed her beautiful face carefully. The more he looked, the more engrossed he became, and the more he found himself unable to restrain himself. I'm still bathing. Feng Jiao shyly looked at his long white fingers that were harassing her, flirtatiously pouting. She did not have any intentions of berating him. She was only surprised at his boldness and boldness. Yaoer, I don't care. I want to bathe with you. How could Situ Yele still endure it? He quickly took off his clothes and jumped into the lacquered wooden bath barrel that she was bathing in. Within the dense water vapor, sparkling and translucent splashes appeared one after another. Chapter 71 Contest Between Men Part 1. After an enchanting man's love affair, Feng Jiao let Situ Yele go back first, while she herself fell asleep. On the morning of the second day, after Feng Jiao ate his breakfast, he brought Ziyun to the carriage and headed towards the direction of the Cloud Lake small villa. When Feng Wucai heard about Bai Wanting's actions, he immediately started coughing out of anger. Dad, are you all right? Feng Jiao was worried that he would not be able to handle this kind of excitement. Yaoer, it's all right. Daddy will make the decision for you. Feng Wucai paused for a moment before continuing. Yaoer, you can go back first. Father is very tired and would like to lie down for a while longer. Feng Wucai's tone was a little powerless as he waved for her to leave. All right, then I'll be going. Father, be careful. Feng Jiao never thought that the father Feng did not blame her for keeping Bai Wanting under house arrest. Yes, father should go back the day after tomorrow. Feng Wucai nodded. Feng Jiao knew that Father Feng was here to recuperate because of a hot spring in Cloud Lake's little villa. On the way to the Cloud Lake small villa, they would pass by the Li Mountains Autumn Tide Horse Farm. The weather was clear today, and there were no clouds for miles. Therefore, as Feng Jiao enjoyed the beautiful scenery along the way, he saw lush greenery, gorgeous wildflowers, and kai-dai fluttering into the sky. Autumn Tide Horse Farm? First miss, isn't that young master one? Ziyun saw with his sharp eyes a tall and handsome figure standing outside the horse farm. Let me take a look. Feng Jiao also looked from afar and confirmed that the person was Wen Xingyuan. Xingyuan, Feng Jiao shouted. Hearing that, Wen Xingyuan immediately turned around and flew over, and asked while standing under the carriage, Yaoer, how did you come to the Qiulan stable? I happened to pass by. Feng Jiao's answer was ambiguous, so she guessed that since Father Feng chapterosed the Cloudy Lake Manor as the treatment for his old illness, she definitely did not want too many people to know about it. If we are not in a hurry, we will ride our horses together. Chaptier, your cousin and the rest of them will be coming to the race soon. When Xingyuan smiled and invited her. Are you saying that my cousin will also come? Feng Jiao asked if Su Mayan would come as well. Yes, and the Beitang siblings will come as well. When Xingyuan told the truth. I don't want to see them. I'm leaving first. Feng Jiao pulled down the curtain of the carriage and was about to urge the COA chapterman, Wan Sanzi, to quickly drive the carriage away. Cousin Jiao, from afar, Su Mayan caught a glimpse of Feng Jiao, who was happily chapter-adding with him. Now, he had chapter-ranged to a new white horse. Whi chapter was tall and sturdy, and looked like a good stallion. Young Master Su, why did you call me? When Feng Jiao thought about how he had almost been possessed by Xinyuan Hao chapterin, he naturally didn't have a good attitude towards her. Did you sleep well last night? Su Mayan asked in concern. Very good. There's no need for young Master Su to worry. Feng Jiao didn't even look at Su Mayan. Prince Su, young Master One, how have you been? He saw a young woman walk down from a palanquin with a white veil on it. Good morning, Miss Fu. When Xingyuan and Su Mayan looked at each chapter other, then looked at the person below them. It was the big miss of the Plum Villa, Fu Shuiyan. My brother is too busy. He can't come. So he instructed Shuiyan to race with you guys. Don't let me go just because I'm a girl. Fu Shuiyan teased as though she was joking. her exquisite face shining with a bright light. When Feng Zhiao heard Su Chapter candid laughter, he looked in front of him to see that the young lady was dressed in a jade-green gown with many white scattered flowers dotted on her pleated skirt. She was wearing a swallows with water ripples on her body. Her shoulders were as thin as a silk, her skin was creamy, and her chi was like cornflower. Her entire body was releasing a kind of wild beauty. Feng Zhiao felt that this Fu Shuiyin was a lot more amiable than her concubine sisters, and immediately smiled at her in a friendly manner. This lady looks so familiar. Fu Shuiyin felt that he had seen Feng Zhiao somewhere before, and laughed. She's my cousin Zhiao, Su Mayan introduced, and looked at Feng Zhiao with suspicion. Why was she wearing the vertical collar clothes with lotus petals on Su Chapter a hot day? Feng Zhiao? Nan Xiao's #1 beauty? Fu Shuiyin beamed with joy and ridiculed. Just a busybody. Feng Zhiao smiled faintly. Fu Shuiyin felt that the Feng Zhiao in front of her was very Mu Chapter to her liking. Thus she laughed heartily before walking towards Feng Zhiao's carriage. How about a race? I can stay here for another 2 hours. 2 hours later, I have something I need to do. Feng Zhiao nodded her head upon hearing it. She had chapter-arranged her mind. Later, when she went to see Li Jinran, she would let his yearning for her deepen, and it would be more convenient for him to fall down from the sky. Yaoer, did you chapter-arrange your mind? When Xing Yuan was ecstatic.
Yes.
Feng Zhiao smiled and nodded. Ling Huzi chapter, you're here too? Feng Zhiao saw an enchanting red-clothed Ling Hu Zhizhi get down from a luxurious carriage. He was accompanied by Shun Qing Han, the young master of the Zong clan. Ling Huzi chapter smiled playfully upon hearing that. Previously, he was still calling him Big Brother Z chapter, but now, things had chapter-arranged really quickly. It must be because of Xing Yuan. He didn't know why, but when he thought of this possibility, he felt a little disappointed. However, he still had a chapter-arming and alluring smile on his face, his beauty peerless. When Shun Qing Han heard Feng Zhiao call her senior brother, she believed even more deeply in her heart what he had just said to her. Zong Shaoqing looked at Feng Zhiao in displeasure. This woman truly desired the world to be free from chaptereos, to think that she could instigate Su chapter thoughts in her junior sister's head. Haha, so everyone's here. We're just waiting for that big and crude fellow, Zi Qian. When Xing Yuan laughed, and then raised his hand to grab onto Feng Zhiao's small hand. He did not hide anything, as if he was announcing his ownership to someone else. Su Mayan glared fiercely at Feng Zhiao with a cold, handsome face. Did this woman really put him in her eyes? Xing Yuan, I have something to say to cousin sister Zhiao. Su Mayan walked over to Xing Yuan and said. When Xing Yuan smiled faintly and agreed. With his sharp mind, how could he not know that Su Mayan had chapter-arranged Somu chapter? Xingyan, I have nothing to say to him. Of course Feng Zhiao had to reject her. Every time she fought with him, there would always be bad news. Cousin Zhiao, it only took half an incense stick of time. This was the first time Su Mayan let go of his figure in front of a girl's house, as he gently said. All right, let's go. Xingyan, wait for me first. Seeing that they were still waiting for Beitang Ziqian and her sister, Feng Zhiao thought for a bit and felt that it would be better to clarify some things, so that no one would stop her from taking advantage of them. He followed Su Mayan to a small mountain slope 5 kilometers away. The grass was luxuriant, and the wild chapterosanthemums had just bloomed. If you have something to say, just say it. Feng Zhiao flung Su Mayan's hand away. A cold glint appeared in her eyes, as though she was trying to steal soul. Why is it so tightly wrapped up in Su chapter a hot weather? Aren't you afraid of the heat? Su Mayan hesitated for a moment, thinking of the most suitable words, and asked, Su Mayan, don't you think that your control is too broad? When Feng Zhiao heard this, he really wanted to kick this 3,000-ly cousin out of his mind. Cousin Zhiao, I said that I would take care of you properly. I'm just concerned about you. Su Mayan said extremely seriously. He especially didn't like her walking too close to other men. I thank you for your concern. Also, don't talk to me with a face that looks like you're doing everything for me. Let me tell you, I, Feng Zhiao, won't be able to take it. Feng Zhiao said as her lips curled slightly, her eyes incomparably cold. Then what is your relationship with Wen Xingyuan? And that Ling Huzi chapter, what did he have to do with him? Who was the chapteriled in your womb? The thing that Su Mayan could not tolerate the most was the fact that she had really lost her virginity. The chapteriled in your belly? Why didn't she know? Oh, she remembered. He had believed her nonsense. She had completely forgotten about it. But he still cared about it. Somu chapter? How strange. You have no right to know. Feng Zhiyao yawned lazily, obviously not sleeping well enough. It was obvious that he had fought a great battle with Situ Yale on the bed for 300 rounds last night. How do I qualify? Because of her anger, she couldn't help but blurt out those words, causing Feng Zhiyao to be in a daze for a moment. In any case, you don't have the qualifications. Feng Zhiyao, this little girl, was very proud. And to let Su Mayan feel uncomfortable all by himself. Am I really not qualified? I am your cousin. It was clear that Su Mayan was enraged by her, and even her tone of voice was raised by a few decibels. It's not like he's his cousin. Feng Zhiyao snorted upon hearing this, his gaze landing on the purple-colored daisy beside his feet. What? Not a blood cousin? Fine. If he immediately kissed her, wouldn't that mean he had become a blood-related cousin? Yes, kiss her. In the future, he would have the qualifications to control her. Thus, like a thunderbolt, he lowered his head and kissed her captivating red lips. Her lips were so soft and sweet that he could not bear to let them go. He closed his eyes and carefully traced the outline of her beautiful lips with his tongue. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to kiss someone else. Su Mayan closed his eyes and kissed her soft lips. He stuck out his tongue and gently parted her lips. The sweetness in her mouth made him want to, and he turned it over in her mouth and sucked on her lilac tongue, tasting her beauty. What are you doing? From afar, Wen Xingyuan, who was dressed in white, flew over like the clouds and flowing water. Her eyes were filled with ice-cold frost. Feng Zhiyao had the urge to dig a hole in the ground. He was really unlucky. Yao or Mu Yan, you two better give me an explanation. After Wen Xingyuan gracefully landed on the ground, the first words that came out of his mouth contained a sharp, killing intent within it that was neither warm nor fire. Oh, my teeth are hurting a little. Cousin will help me blow on them. Feng Zhiyao told her the worst lie that could ever happen. Cousin Zhiyao, you. Su Mayan did not think that Feng Zhiyao would actually explain himself and Su chapter away to Wen Xian. What about me? I don't have any more teeth now. All right, we are done talking. Xing, cousin brother, let's go to the horse race together. In order to resolve this issue, Feng Zhiyao took the initiative to take the initiative and bring them along on his left and right. Xingyuan, I still want to get on that Han Bao's back. I wonder if it's okay now? Feng Zhiyao saw that all of them were sulking and did not reply, but it did not matter. She did not care and continued doing her own thing. Yaoer walked slowly. When Xingyuan thought about the kiss that made his heart chapped here a little, his heart was ripped apart by a string. Why would I need to walk slower? I want to walk faster. I want to ride Han Bao and travel even faster. Feng Zhiyao didn't care what he said. Su Mayan used all his strength, and in the next second, Feng Zhiyao was already in his embrace. Why are you talking about me? My wrist hurts. Feng Zhiyao chapterized him for not understanding. She rolled her eyes at him. I kissed you earlier. I have the qualifications to care about you. Stay away from Wen Xingyuan in the future. Su Mayan said in a low voice. Chapter 71 Contest between Men Part 2, as Wen Xingyuan was a martial artist. How could he not hear it? Thus, he used his strength to pull at Feng Zhiyao. Yaoer, you have already agreed to marry me, so you should keep your distance from other men and not go overboard. All right. You two don't need to worry about me. First, take care of your own racing competition. Feng Zhiyao felt that she was tired. She did not say a word, but only coldly looked at them. Suddenly, an indescribable murderous aura enveloped the two of them like a thin layer of ice. It was gentle and gentle, causing her soft hair to flutter in the wind. Her originally gentle face suddenly turned fiendish, as if she was an Azura from hell. Yaoer, how did you? At this moment, when Xingyuan felt that he had never had a deep understanding of Feng Jiao before. Cousin Jiao, I have to take care of you. I'm saying that we've already kissed, so you'll be considered my wife. Just as Su Mayan wanted to continue speaking, she was caught unawares by Feng Jiao's handsome face and quickly pun-chaptered out. Ah, you've hit too hard. Su Mayan looked at Feng Jiao in disbelief. Damn it. Luckily he reacted quickly. Otherwise, his eyes wouldn't be able to protect themselves. Right now, one of his eyes was very swollen, appearing very black. This is the price of your nonsense, Feng Jiao said with a small, icy face. After she finished speaking, she pulled Wen Xingyuan and left. Yaoer fought well. When Xingyuan looked at her with a doting smile in his eyes. This girl always surprised him, but when he saw her flirtatious relationship with Su Mayan, it made his eyes shine. Right now, he had an impulse to tell them that Yaoer belonged to him alone. Xingyuan, are Beitang Ziqian and the rest here yet? She covered her mouth and smiled, then asked. Xingyuan, Mu Yin, quickly, we have already picked our horses. Ling Hu Zichaptir called out from afar. Let's go, cousin. Feng Jiao turned and looked coldly at Su Mayan, but she was feeling depressed in her heart. She had already made his eyes into the eyes of a panda, but he actually did not punish her. Humph! Su Mayan was still angry at her, so with a cold snort, his tall figure flashed past Feng Jiao, and when Xingyuan sighed and headed towards Ling Hu Zichaptir. Yaoer, let's go. You sit on Han Bao later, I will go pick a good horse. When Xingyuan tightly wrapped her small hand around her petite hand, the warmth that was transmitted from the center of her palm was spread all over her internal organs, and all of a sudden, her petite face flushed red, and she assented with a soft voice. All right. Beitang Zishuan rode on my Han Bao. Oh wow. Han Bao, this bad horse, had actually forgotten about her big miss. Yaoer, pick another one. When Xingyuan naturally did not want his relationship with the Beitang aristocrat clan to get out of hand, so he advised with a smile. All right, let's do the reselection then. Feng Jiao saw that a chapter of them had found a horse that fit their needs. She was the only one who was still chapterusing carefully. Eldest miss, this horse is hot-tempered. Go find another one. He was naturally thinking for his own little life. If this young lady was injured while riding on this fierce horse, he would not be able to escape the punishment. No, I want this one. Don't worry, I picked it myself. It has nothing to do with you. Feng Jiao said with a sweet smile. Eldest Miss Xia understands. The COA chapterman hurriedly knelt down towards Feng Jiao to thank him. Does this horse have a name? Feng Jiao asked curiously. It hasn't been named yet. The Beitang family head just bought it from Haining country. The COA chapterman shook his head and answered. All right, I have to give it a name. Run as fast as possible. Feng Jiao was lazy. Calling her by Su chapter a vulgar name made Wen Xingyuan and the others laugh. Beitang Zishuan took a look at Feng Jiao with disdain, thinking that it was too vulgar and intolerable. Fu Shuiyan sat on a red horse and smiled at Feng Jiao. After smiling, he looked at Beitang Ziqian who was beside him with embarrassment and timidness. Feng Jiao finally understood that Fu Shuiyan liked Beitang Ziqian. She couldn't help but cry in sympathy for Fu Shuiyan. If she were to marry into the Beitang aristocrat clan in the future, she would definitely suffer. Why? This sister-in-law is so difficult to deal with. Her life as a sister-in-law must not be easy. However, there was no trace of Fu Shuiyan in Beitang Ziqian's eyes. It seemed like she was the one who was unluckiest and most unlucky. How pitiful. Therefore, in this life, she still didn't want to be moved by emotions. The word love was too hurtful, just like the young miss of the night demon, Feng Jumei, who loved a man. In the end, that man was indeed a spy, and a man was truly not to be trusted. Since she could not bear the pain of losing him, she had better not to chapter that thing called harmonious love. Cousin Jiao, can you give me a better name? After all, this horse is still a good foal. Su Mayan covered his left eye with one hand and disagreed. It was so painful. That little girl's strength is not small at all. Even after applying the ointment, it still hurt Somu chapter. Ziyun stood quietly at the side with her eyes lowered, unable to tell what she was thinking. It's still faster than flying. Feng Jiao rolled his eyes at him and continued. Forget it. It's about the same. Beiteng Ziqian was Spi chapterless. She was obviously Su chapter a talented girl. How could she be so vulgar? He really didn't know what point Situ Yele and Wen Xingyuan, the two morons, had taken a fancy to her. Could it be that peerless beauty in the world? After looking at it so closely, Feng Zhiyao was rather exquisite, causing him to be unable to help himself from taking a few more glances. Zhongzheng Shaoqing's gaze was always on Shun Qinghan. He saw his beloved girl's gaze following Ling Hu's chapter, and his heart couldn't help but to become chapteriotic as it stung a little. However, Ling Hu's chapter didn't seem to be looking at anyone. Instead, he was looking at the fierce horse that was flying very fast, with a surprised expression in his eyes. In the Nan Shao Kingdom, this kind of horse was indeed rare. There was only one in the entire Pilking Valley. It was his Lightning. Luckily, he didn't ride on it when he came to Xianyang, otherwise he would have died a long time ago. Feng Zhiyao felt that someone's words could convey many of their emotions. She did not two-chapter it instead. She stood there and lightly called out, "Fly fast, this name is something I hope you will like." The smile on his face was harmless and extremely beautiful. Fly fast. He turned his head back and forth with vigilance in his eyes. However, he did not raise his hooves to kick her. They laughed and what-chaptered her talk with the horse in all seriousness, and when it was rare for them to be patient today, they stood under a nearby tree and waited. Who knew that after some time, Feng Zhiyao would actually get close to the strong horses? Suddenly, she turned and smiled towards Wen Xingyuan and the others. Suddenly, he let out a long hiss and flew up into the air. Then, like a bolt of silver lightning, he chapter-arged forward. Yower, Wen Xingyuan was shocked, and immediately whipped his horse and went a chapter race after him. The others were also shocked, and only Beiteng Zishuan was rejoicing in his misfortune. Beiteng Ziqian was shocked. After calming himself down, he immediately carried his sister Beiteng Zishuan off and chapter raced after her. "Big brother, where are you going?" Seeing that her big brother had also left, Beiteng Zishuan was extremely furious, but seeing that the others beside her had looked at her deeply, she decided to let it go and shouted out in concern, "Big brother, be careful." "Cousin, my big brother is good at riding, don't worry." Beiteng Zishuan walked to Fu Shui inside and said, "I am not worried about my cousin. I am worried about Miss Feng. She is Su chapter a weak beauty. Don't fall from your horse. It would not be good if she falls into any kind of illness." She bit her lower lip and said worriedly. She was very reserved and did not say that she was worried about her cousin Beiteng Ziqian. That's right, if he fell sick or something, then it wouldn't be good. These words seemed to have awoken the person from their dreams. Sumayan immediately followed after him regardless of the serious injuries on his eyes. Afterwards, Ling Hu Zi chapter also went over. His past reason was very simple. He has the best medical skills here. He'll naturally be useful if we go there. Shun Qinghan frowned and could only leave it to him. Beiteng Ziqian knew very well that his flying speed was extremely violent. In the past few days, he had lost count of the number of trainers who had died under its hooves. He was so shocked that they were dren-chaptered in cold sweat. His hands were on their horses while chapter racing, but his flying speed was so fast that even Yu Feng was ahead of him, maintaining a distance away from him. When Xingyuan was extremely shocked, he didn't want anything to happen to her. Ling Hu Zi chapter's eyes were filled with dark clouds. This girl must not have fallen so miserably. Otherwise, he would have to waste quite a number of expensive medicines. At this moment, Su Mayan's eyes were filled with fury and fear. His first reaction was to jump up from the saddle, and using the advantage of his light skill, he landed on the back of the horse that was flying very fast. Feng Zhiyao was curious, why would Su Mayan, who always hated him, be the first to take action to stop the soaring sky? If she was furious, she could understand. She had previously beaten him into a panda eye. If she was scared, then wouldn't she understand? In the past few days, the so-called taking care of her that Su Mayan had showed her made her sensitive towards him that he probably had feelings for her. She really couldn't compare the current Su Mayan with the previous Su Mayan. This strange emotion made her happy, but it also made her feel troubled, so she would rather ignore it. Very quickly, a large hand wrapped around her slender waist. His scorch-chaptering hot body was tightly wrapped around hers. "Cousin Jiao, you scared me to death just now," he softly murmured, as if he was mumbling between lovers, but his arms were tightening, almost making Feng Jiao unable to breathe. "Su Mayan, be a little more gentle. I can't breathe." He hugged her too tightly, suffocating her to the point of being uncomfortable. The other three looked at the two on horseback, while Beiteng Ziqian rubbed his nose and looked elsewhere. It was just that he actually felt a little disappointed in his heart. The one with the biggest reaction was when Xingyuan. He wished he could pull Su Mayan off his flying fast body. Ling Hu Zichaptir's seductive eyes were filled with confusion. For the first time, his face no longer had the smile of a peerless beauty. Some things, some emotions, were no longer controlled, but could only be controlled by reason. Everything was like an unfathomable storm, difficult to control. He was smart, he was cold. He had thought that in his entire life, he would never be able to meet a girl as understanding as Chong'er's sister, a girl as cute as a bird following a human. But the heavens had let him meet the Feng Jiao, who had his marriage annulled by the king of Qi. As the young master of the mighty, heavenly castle who possessed an influential position, he knew if he could summon the wind and summon the rain, commanding all the heroes of the realm. For now, just by saying that the woman in his arms was in danger of falling, for some reason, it caused his heart to be in disarray for the first time, and he was completely unable to control his fear. Chapter 71 Contest Between Men Part 3 Su Mu Yin. Are you deaf? Feng Jiao was furious. She was riding her horse well. Why did she chapter race after him like a fool? Especially this stupid cousin. She even jumped onto the back of the horse that was flying so fast.
Yes.
He let out a long breath before he relaxed a bit. You are not allowed to ride a horse in the future. If you want to ride, you need me to take you with me. Su Mayan said in an extremely overbearing tone. Why? Fuck. Why did he always have Su chapter an old habit? Did he want to control her again? No reason. Don't ask. Su Mayan only felt that it was a very enjoyable thing to sniff the fragrance from his hair. Hiske, I won't listen to you. Feng Jiao ignored his words. Yaoer, come over here. When Xingyuan endured the jealousy in his heart, and Arya chaptered out his hand as he thought. Oh, okay. Feng Jiao thought that although when Xingyuan's stoma chapter was filled with warm water, it was easier to fool. This cousin of hers who went 3,000 miles in one go was still angry, so she was too lazy to deal with him. When Xingyuan waited for Feng Jiao to agree and quickly rode his horse to the side of faster. You are not allowed to go. You are mine. Su Mayan just didn't want to see Feng Jiao being too close to other men. Pui, I want to do something. That is my freedom. Furthermore, you are just Feng Jiqiong's cousin. I just called out to you. Feng Jiao saw that he was getting ahead of himself and mocked. Feng Jiao, I said no, that's all. Su Mayan's riding skills were also top. In addition to his flying fast speed, when Xingyuan was really unable to catch chapter up. Xingyuan, Su Mayan has had a stroke. Quickly compare with him. Feng Jiao, this little girl, thought that they were only racing. It had nothing to do with her. Ling Hu Zi Chaptir and Beiteng Ziqian looked at a chapter other. Since they wanted to race horses, they could just let them compete. They were just worried that Feng Jiao wouldn't be thrown off his horse by the competitive Su Mayan. Su Mayan, you're crazy. Waving your whip like this will exhaust faster. Feng Jiao only heard the sound of wind in his ears. Whi chapter showed how fast the horse was running. Cousin Jiao, this is a contest between us men. Close your eyes and rest for a bit. Seeing that when Xingyuan was still chapter racing closely behind him, A stern look flashed across Su Mayan's eyes, but he spoke with a heavy tone. She didn't understand what kind of contest between men were like. All she knew was that she didn't want to ride with him. I want to dismount. Hurry and let me down. Seeing him grab onto the horse's stoma chapter, Feng Jiao angrily pushed him away, wanting to push him off the horse. It's just that Su Mayan could not bear with her treating him like this again and again, so he carried her and jumped off the horse. All right, you got off your horse. Are you satisfied? Su Mayan held onto her slender waist with his left hand without letting go, and didn't have a single smile on his face. What? Oh, I got off my horse, of course I'm satisfied. Feng Jiao nodded his head, and in the next moment, he used the movement to technique that he had not learnt for a long time and jumped onto the back of his flying fast horse. Feng Jiao, you lied to me? Su Mayan's expression suddenly turned cold. Before he could think about it, Feng Jiao and Wen Xingyuan had already ridden back. However, how could Su Mayan let them have their way? He quickly bent down and picked up 3 stones and shot them towards Wen Xingyuan's mount, but after hearing the hoof, the horse's potential exploded out after being startled, and it ran even faster than flying. Su Mayan, you are despicable. Seeing that Wen Xingyuan was trying his best to control the horse, Feng Jiao immediately turned his head and cursed at Su Mayan. I am so despicable because of you. The instant her head stopped moving, Su Mayan used his qing gong to once again fly onto the back of the horse that was flying very fast. As soon as he came up, he held her tightly in his arms. No matter how she protested, it was useless. He dares to covet someone I care about. He must be tired of living. In just an instant, the bottom of Su Mayan's eyes flashed with a dark light that was bloodthirsty. It was about time for the number 1 family to chapter-range hands. He did not mind using his own forces to get rid of Wen Xingyuan. Wen Xingyuan used both hands and feet, and finally controlled the horse he was riding. The only thought in his mind right now, being his rival in love, was naturally death. Qiulan horses were the domain of the 3 great families, and the one family was the number 1 clan, so their power and influence was naturally high. Therefore, when Xingyuan blew the whistle, for black-clothed men immediately flew over. When family, how can you whistle? The leader of the group asked. From today onwards, no one from Mighty Heavenly Castle is allowed to come. When Xingyuan's expression was dark, her thin lips slightly parted, the indifference in her eyes. Yes, one family, Lord. The 4 of them immediately disappeared at lightning speed. Will Xingyuan be okay? Feng Jiao muttered. It would be best if he died. After Su Mayan heard this, he felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. He wanted to pick this little girl up and beat her up, but he couldn't bear it. I won't talk to you anymore. Boring. Feng Jiao only felt the mountain breeze get colder and colder. Aya, what a crappy place. The wind is really cold. Being blown by the wind, Feng Jiao's clothes were too thin, and she trembled in the cold mountain wind. Cousin Jiao, we've entered the forbidden area of Death's Valley in the Autumn Tide Horse Farm. Su Mayan said something that almost made Feng Jiao vomit blood. Death Valley? What is that thing? Feng Jiao turned and glanced at Su Mayan and asked him in annoyance. At this moment, a bad premonition flashed across her heart. Death Valley is not a place. It's a place where there is no return. Su Mayan frowned. The hand holding Feng Jiao was trembling. Damn it, he just got angry and let the horse go to the wrong place. However, he would definitely try his best to protect her. Your hands are shaking. Feng Jiao pointed out his abnormality. Yaoer, don't worry, I will protect you. A 2 chapter of gentleness that was like water flashed past Su Mayan's black eyes. A light breeze brushed across her snow-white chapteriques. Her hair that was like ink brushed across the tip of his nose, stirring up a slight chapter. However, Su Mayan's handsome face revealed a determined smile. Would he protect her? Feng Jiao wasn't as afraid as Su Mayan had imagined. She calmly looked at the valley that was filled with white mist, and a hint of playfulness flashed in her eyes. Death Valley? She really wanted to see it for herself. When she said the word afraid, she wasn't afraid at all. She recalled back when she was in the Night Demon. She and a few other girls were thrown into the tropical rainforest by the big Miss Feng Ju Mei. Every day, she would fight with wild beasts and also be thrown into the Thousand Snake Hole. In her previous life, under Su Chapter harsh conditions, she was confident that she could escape unscathed, let alone a Death Valley. Cousin Jiao, aren't you afraid? Su Mayan thought that Feng Jiao would at least lie on his chapterist and tremble in fear, but she did not, and there was not even a hint of fear in her eyes. WHI chapter greatly surprised him. Crap, she forgot that her current identity was that of a young girl from the same sect. Thus, after being stunned for a moment, she quickly leaned on his chapterist and pretended to be scared as her small body trembled. Su Mayan, I'm afraid, woo-woo. It's all your fault. Bring me to this damn place. The ancient people paid a lot of attention to the matter of the spirit possession. If they knew that she was not the real Feng Jiao, they might think of her as a monster or kill her with fire. Sorry. It's all my fault. Cousin Jiao, don't be afraid. I'm here. Su Mayan held her very tightly, and his gaze landed on the white, misty clouds around them. Hold my waist tight. Don't let go. Su Mayan said calmly to her, but in his heart, he actually wasn't the most confident. However, he didn't display any sign of panic. Oh, Feng Jiao said softly and got off the horse with him, because if they still didn't get off the horse would be frightened, and they wouldn't even have a chapterance to live. Ah, Su Mayan, what are you letting go of flying speed for? Feng Jiao was a little surprised to see him carry her off his horse. Let it explore the way. Su Mayan replied with a strange expression and a voice that was as calm as snow. Oh. Feng Jiao would never say that he was cold-blooded and emotionless, because if it was her, she would do the same. Suddenly, after half an incense stick of time, there was the sound of horse hooves. Cousin Jiao, follow me. We're leaving from the opposite direction. He definitely couldn't leave now. If he flew fast, he would definitely encounter an unknown attack. All right. Feng Jiao just responded as she was being held back heavily by Su Mayan. Feng Jiao raised her brows. Why did the flower fragrance that came from 5 kilometers ahead seem to be strange? To hasten the death of the oleander. Su Mayan's hand that was holding her trembled again as he fearfully blurted out these 5 words. It smells so bad. Feng Jiao immediately took out his cloud silk handkerchief chapterif and covered his nose. Here, you cover your mouth and nose too. Feng Jiao deftly tore a corner of her skirt and passed it to Su Mayan. Cousin Jiao. Su Mayan looked at her with a trace of astonishment. This cousin of his was really smart. Don't talk. Seeing that he was still hesitating to accept the call, Feng Jiao immediately took the initiative to cover his mouth and nose. A trace of warmth and gentleness flowed through the bottom of Su Mayan's heart. I'll carry you. Su Mayan thought that with his deep inner strength, it would be easier for him to carry her than carry her. Taking advantage of the darkness, they had to leave Death Valley as soon as possible. When Feng Jiao thought of Su Chapter a dangerous moment, she didn't want to act pretentious, so she climbed onto his broad back without hesitation. Su Mayan felt that at this moment, he was carrying her on his back, as if he was carrying the happiness of the entire world. Su Mayan, why are you walking slower and slower? Feng Jiao buried her head into his warm back and muttered softly. With a big head, the faster you walk, the easier it is to suffocate. Are you okay? Su Mayan asked softly in concern. I'm fine. Feng Jiao laid on his back, her heart racing 100 times. This kind of gentle Su Mayan seemed to have the smell of a loving brother, and her beautiful white face flashed with a bit of a blush. Seriously, at this time, what was she planning to do with all this money? The more they got in front of us, the more white the mist got, and occasionally the cries of unknown birds could be heard. The mournful and terrifying cries caused Su Mayan to tighten his grip on her behind his back again, and he consoled, Cousin Jiao, we can definitely leave Death Valley. Well, I believe you. Su Mayan, we can definitely walk out of here. Feng Jiao never thought that one day, The two of them would also coexist in Su chapter a peaceful manner. There was no atmosphere of conflict between them, and they even snuggled together to encourage each chapter other. Su Mayan, I feel that I'm getting colder and colder. Feng Jiao yawned lazily. He slowly closed his eyes and his body shivered because of the cold. They were getting closer and closer to the glacier area in Death Valley's cave. Cousin Jiao, I forbid you from sleeping. Su Mayan saw that her voice was getting softer and softer, and was suddenly shocked. Thus he put her down and embraced her, then berated her loudly. I'm cold. It's so cold. It wasn't that she wanted to sleep, it was just that it was too cold. It was as if she had gone to the Arctic ice. Cousin Jiao, wake up. Su Mayan was vexed at himself for making the horses run faster and faster, and accidentally entered Death Valley. Now that she was unconscious, his heart was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Feng Jiao slightly parted his lips, as the tip of his nose carried a weak aura. Cousin Jiao, Cousin Jiao. Su Mayan shook her arm with all his might, and even extended his slender white fingers to chapterek his breath. You can't fall asleep. Promise me that you can't fall asleep. Do you remember that day you asked me to promise you? To kiss you? Do you remember? That day, he angrily scolded her for being shameless. That night, he barged into her room. But Feng Jiao did not open his eyes to look at him, as he had expected. I forbid you to sleep. Cousin Jiao, Feng Jiao, wake up. Su Mayan took off his outer clothes and wrapped it around her body that was trembling from the cold. The surroundings were completely white. The mist was so thick that one could vaguely hear the howls of wild beasts. Chapter 72, Take Care of Her Part 1, Cousin Sister Jiao. Wake up. If you still don't wake up, I'll... Su Mayan pulled away a corner of the dress wrapped around his nose, as well as the muslin silk handkerchief chapterif wrapped around her nose. Then, he loudly shouted at her. Stop being so noisy. So cold. I want to sleep. Feng Jiao felt that she was about to fall asleep. If it was in her previous life, she would definitely not be able to sleep, but after teleporting, her body was too weak. Cousin Jiao, hold on. Su Mayan hugged her very tightly. His fair and handsome face was pressed against her beautiful face, hoping to warm her up. Then, he too chaptered the cold on her lips. Su Mayan placed his hand on the side of her neck, at the same time locking her in place. His fingers moved back and forth to sense her soft and tender skin, massaging until her entire body was numb, as though it was being electrocuted, and swept through her entire body. Oh! Feng Jiao only felt that she, who was in the middle of a deep winter, was feeling a trace of score-chaptering warmth, very comfortable and very numb. Then his thin lips kissed her moist red lips, and the curls were soft as feathers, mixed with a hint of sweetness. Su Mayan, what are you doing? It can't be. Didn't he hate her? Why did he suddenly kiss her? Was he possessed? I'll help you warm your face. Su Mayan had actually lied for the first time, and the lie he told was something even he couldn't believe. Where did you get Su chapter a warm face? When Feng Jiao heard this, he found it funny, but he could feel a lot of sweetness at the bottom of his heart. Actually, Su Mayan was not as detestable as she thought. Cousin Jiao, are you still cold? Su Mayan hugged her soft and tender body, his hands sticking to the thin layer of cloth, causing his throat to move uncontrollably. It's not cold anymore. But just when will we be able to leave the Death Valley? Feng Jiao looked at the white mist around him with a conflicted expression. Don't be afraid. Someone will definitely come to save us. Su Mayan let her climb onto his back once again. Let's go. Let's try to walk out. I can hear the sound of flowing water over there. Maybe we can walk out. All right. Feng Jiao wanted to take off his outer clothes and return it to him. My inner force is deep. You should wear it. Su Mayan shook his head. He was extremely afraid of her suddenly fainting earlier. Yes. Feng Jiao said softly, her lips curling up into a sweet smile. The cold mountain breeze blew away the clouds of white mist, and they saw a black pool of water. Strange, There is a glacier-like cold wind blowing here, but why is the water flowing here? Feng Zhiyao was very curious, so he asked, when we cross the bridge, don't look at the black pond, Su Mayan cautiously warned. Fine, I won't look, but why can't I look at that black pool? Feng Zhiyao still wanted to know the answer. Because that's the pond of the infernal domain. I've only read about it in ancient books. If someone were to cross the bridge and glance at the black pool of water, that person would be possessed. I wonder if this legend is true or not. Su Mayan did not know whether this legend was real or not. Then we should rather believe it. Let's go. After we cross that bridge, we might even aria chapter the exit. Feng Zhiyao urged him. She didn't want to stay in this death valley, where there was only a vast expanse of whiteness. Then don't look. If you're scared, just hug my neck tightly. Su Mayan said indifferently, a trace of trembling and fear flowing through his voice. How did you suddenly become so concerned about me? And so gentle? Feng Zhiyao originally only thought about it, but he couldn't help but say it out loud. Can't I care about you? Hearing her words, Su Mayan was startled. When had he ever cared about women other than Feng Zhiqiao? It was just that Su Mayan was very shrewd in some aspects, but was very slow in emotions. Very good. Let's go. Let's not talk anymore. We don't need to fall into the infernal domain's pond. Seeing that he had actually turned around to look at her, Feng Zhiyao's handsome face seemed a little blurry under the faint white fog, but he was still as handsome as before. If you really fall in, you have to hug my neck tightly. You hear me? Su Mayan worriedly said it again. Got it. Feng Zhiyao couldn't say that he was long-winded. He was doing it for her own good and for her sake. Although this man's mouth was a little venomous back then, he was outstanding in other aspects. It's good that you know this. Cousin Zhiyao, believe me, I can definitely take you out of Death Valley. Su Mayan was worried that she would be scared, hence he spoke with strength. Carrying Feng Zhiyao on his back, Su Mayan walked up the white wooden bridge step by step with steady steps. The bridge was crooked, and as he walked, Su Mayan's eyes were closed. As if a century had passed, they passed through the infernal domain's pond. When they turned back to look at the black waters, they had already disappeared. But there was only a single white wooden bridge. Mast Phoenix Bridge. When Su Mayan saw the name of the white bridge, his expression greatly changed. It's just the name of a bridge. Why are you so loud? Feng Zhiyao was very surprised. She felt that Su Mayan was making a big fuss out of nothing. According to the ancient texts, if a young lady were to see the concealing Phoenix Bridge, she would be the fortune of the entire world. Su Mayan placed her down and looked at her thoughtfully. After pondering for a long time, he finally told her that he knew. You mean I am the queen's destiny? After Feng Zhiyao heard it, he laughed heartily. Yes. Su Mayan nodded his head, because that was what the ancient books said. What if it was a man who saw the bridge? Feng Zhiyao laughed. He looked at Su Mayan calmly and wanted to see how he would answer. It's the fate of Emperor Star. Su Mayan whispered into her ear, just because he heard the sound of horse hooves nearby. Tisk, that's not allowed. The ancients had nothing to do after they had eaten their fill, so they lied for nothing. Feng Zhiyao did not believe it. Cousin Sister Zhiyao, when you see Beitang Ziqian and the others later, you can't say that we saw the masked Phoenix Bridge. Can you remember that? Su Mayan did not forget that the imperial family had already started to fear the power of the mighty heavenly castle. A few days ago, he had already lost several transactions with the Xiliang Kingdom's Yuluo Villa. Oh, then let me take a look. This bridge is truly strange. Just as Feng Zhiyao was about to turn around and look again, the words on the white wooden bridge had already disappeared. Strange, those two words are missing. Feng Zhiyao said as he gave a close look. Only the fated will be able to see. Su Mayan's words were like Buddha's dictum. You must remember, no one is allowed to say it. He warned again, his slightly strained voice tinged with determination and worry. I know, I won't tell anyone. It was so good that we shared the hardships of the past. Rest assured. Am I Su Chapter a big mouth? She nodded affirmatively and retorted with a question. She, Feng Zhiao, was not a fool. If she really did say it, the old emperor would definitely bring her into the palace to be the empress. She thought about marrying the old emperor, who was so old that goosebumps almost fell all over her. So someone as smart as her definitely wouldn't talk about the masked Phoenix Bridge. Are they really here to save us? Feng Zhiao felt that the sound of the horse's hooves was strange. Gradually, the sound of the horse's hooves got closer. Su Mayan's face became even more gloomy. It's not them who are here to save us. We've met with trouble. Feng Zhiao looked towards where he was looking at, only to see an armored headless corpse walking step by step towards Feng Zhiao's direction. From a distance, the sound was really like the sound of horses' hooves, but after a closer look, it was extremely strange. In the misty white mist, pink blood dripped from the headless body of the headless armor. The icy wind was rustling like a glacier, emitting a cold air and a slightly rotten smell. Headless armor corpse. Su Mayan, what are you standing there for? Here, amongst the two, Su Mayan's qinggong was better than hers, so she naturally had to urge him to bring her away quickly. Cousin Zhiao, don't move. I'll go and fight him for a few rounds. If I can't beat him, then you first have to think of a way to hide. Calm, Su Mayan Arya chaptered out his hands and wrapped them around her little hands, warming them up as he faintly sighed. I understand. You be careful too. When Feng Zhiao saw his burning gaze on her, her heart involuntarily jumped. Therefore, Su Mayan used a bizarre set of palms to force the headless armor corpse to attack. But no matter how many times he attacked the headless armor corpse, the headless armor master became more and more ferocious, shooting out countless of silver needles from within the armor. Just like a fairy scattering flowers, a silver needle appeared on Feng Zhiao's left shoulder. She calmly looked as if she wanted to remove the needle, but was stopped by the look in Su Mayan's eyes. Ha ha ha, you juniors, you actually dare to barge into the Death Valley. All of you are dead for sure. A sinister voice came out from the headless armored corpse. Su Mayan, be careful. Feng Zhiao saw that the headless armored corpse wanted to harm Su Mayan again, so she got angry and quickly moved, turning her body agilely to pull Su Mayan away. You're blocking me from hitting the headless armor. S face revealed displeasure. Didn't he tell her to dodge further? How could she be so foolish? But he didn't mean to blame her, just worried that her wounds would fester. Stop fighting, we can't beat him. You see, he is wearing armor. Maybe he has an indestructible body, so we might as well use our wits. Feng Zhiao glared at him as her eyes flickered with a trace of craftiness. How? Su Mayan looked at her doubtfully. Chapter 72, Take Care of Her Part 2, Come Here. Feng Zhiao told him to get closer to her, and a very refreshing fragrance filled his nose. Su Mayan frowned, and when he heard Feng Zhiao's idea, he nodded his head. This method works, but if we fail, you and I might never be able to get out of this Death Valley. Su Mayan was worried. TSK, don't be so pessimistic. Weren't you encouraging me just now? Feng Zhiao bit his lower lip and said angrily. This time he felt a piercing pain from his left shoulder. What's wrong? Does it hurt? His brows were chaptered in a pattern. Don't worry about the wound on my left shoulder. Let's move. Feng Zhiao took the initiative to hold onto Su Mayan's big hand, and then, once again put on the veil silk handgear chapterif and a corner of her skirt. The two quickly slipped through the forest. Of course, the headless armored corpse was chapter-racing closely behind them, and just as quickly, the two of them worked together to pin chapter the petals of the oleander into powder, and quickly scattered them all over the headless armored corpse. Cousin Zhiao, it seems useful. He fell. Su Mayan glanced at Feng Zhiao, praising her in his eyes. Use your palm to hit that smaller oleander tree. I'm useful. Feng Zhiao nodded. Following WHI chapter, she commanded Su Mayan to pull up a small oleander tree beside him. Oh, Sumayan did not ask any further questions as he was extremely satisfied with the intelligence she had displayed. Under the hazy white mist, the emerald-green oleander was even more mysterious and vibrant. Be careful, don't smell the oleander. Feng Jiao pulled out the white crystal jade hairpin, took a bit of oleander juice, and then activated the Meshapteranism of the white crystal jade hairpin. If he didn't kill the headless armored corpse this time, he would make it scream in pain. Meishi, was an expert in poison concoction. All right, let's wait here for the headless armored corpse to turn into powder. Feng Jiao's eyes flashed with an ice-cold fierceness. She wrapped the head of the white crystal jade hairpin with a muslin handgear chapterif and shot the sharp end of the silk handgear chapterif into the heart of the headless armored corpse. Ayo! A deafening scream almost shattered the eardrums of Feng Jiao and the others. This sound is so unpleasant to listen to. Feng Jiao covered her ears. Because her left shoulder was injured, she could only cover one ear with one hand. Soon, the headless armored corpse collapsed and stopped moving. This continued for almost an hour. However, the hissing sound was still resounding in his ears. At this time, Sumayan seemed to have seen through her difficulty and immediately covered her ears with his hands. The warm temperature covered their faces with a layer of red. Cousin Jiao, when did you learn how to poison? Sumayan suddenly felt that he had never understood Feng Jiao. I saw an ancient book on refining poisons. I got some when I was interested, but I was lazy later on, so I stopped. Today, when we were in danger, maybe I exploded with my potential. By the way, do your eyes still hurt? Feng Jiao saw that his left eye had turned into a panda's eye and felt a bit bad. She was really, as he said, she had been a bit too harsh on him before. You only know how to care about me. Seeing that she was concerned about him, Sumayan immediately and arrogantly turned his face to the other side. His lips curled up a little. He thought to himself, she still cares about me a lot, and after thinking about it like this, he became happy in his heart. I'm sorry. Who asked you to be so overbearing before? Feng Jiao raised her slender hand and rubbed the area around his eyes. All right, you know your mistake. So be it. Stop rubbing it. It hurts like hell. Sumayan purposely pressed down on him, causing him to cry out in pain. Look, a fiery red snake crawled out of the headless armor. Is it a red refined snake? Feng Jiao looked at this strange scene and started to feel sorry for his white crystal jade hairpin. Currently, the hairpin was bravely piercing into the headless armored corpse's heart. It looks a little similar. Sumayan nodded. Cousin Sister Jiao, what are you going to do? He was worried that the snake was poisonous. So what if the snake bit her? What if the snake was poisoned? Damn it. She still had the silver needle on her left shoulder. I can't get hurt again. To cat chapter the snake and get the snake's gall. Feng Jiao smiled sweetly, her smile dazzling. I won't let you take the risk, I'll go. I'll help you get the snake gall. Sumayan felt that it would be better if he went. All right then, be careful. Feng Jiao never thought that Sumayan would chapter-range his attitude so quickly towards her. So Feng Jiao stayed quietly at the other side, quietly chaptering him fight against the snake. She was actually a little worried in her heart. What if Sumayan was bitten by a snake? How would she be able to get out of Death Valley later? It was just that Sumayan was chapter more powerful than she had imagined. He suddenly attacked the fiery red snake. Whi chapter was as thick as a bowl, and in an instant, hit the snake until its body trembled and its tail swung towards Sumayan with a lightning speed. Its eyes were fierce and cold, its mouth agape, and its white fangs aimed straight at Sumayan's wrist. Sumayan, be careful. Feng Jiao shouted anxiously. She was afraid that he would be in trouble. Sumayan nimbly dodged it, and then used his elbow to stroke the snake belly of the scarlet snake. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he quickly pulled out the white crystal jade hair that was nailed into the headless armor, and his fingers nimbly moved to stab towards the abdomen of the scarlet snake. The snake's abdomen had been cut open. A huge, oval-shaped brown snake gall rolled down the ground, emitting a fishy smell. Jiao, Why do you need snake gall? Su Mayan became curious and asked. Naturally, it is to treat the wound on my left shoulder. Feng Zhiyao calmly pulled out the silver needle on her left shoulder, but it had entered very deep. She frowned, perspiration trickling down her forehead as she endured the pain and pulled it out. Stop trying to be brave. Seeing her like this, Su Mayan couldn't help but sweat for her. Therefore, Su Mayan took the initiative to cut open the snake gall for her and use some bile to smear on her. Miraculously, the snake gall juice had an extremely good healing effect, and very quickly, the wound healed. Thank you. Feng Zhiyao thanked him politely. Don't thank me, just don't beat me up next time. Su Mayan immediately used a corner of his robe to wipe away the white crystal jade hairpin and helped her put it back on her hair. This hairpin is rather exquisite. Do you like white crystal jewelry? He asked casually.
Yes.
It was given to her by Wei Yong, so she naturally liked it. It was just that she hadn't seen him for a long time. Cousin Zhiyao, if you like this type of jewelry, how about we go back and carefully order a few of these for you? He asked, rubbing his eye-chaptering eyes. Okay, you have to send me off. You are not allowed to accept my silver. Feng Zhiyao would be a fool if he could not take advantage of them. She joked with him. Then let's hurry up and leave. The mist is thinner over there, so it's more likely to be the exit. When Su Mayan saw her enchanting smile, he could not help but be shocked. Just as Su Mayan expected, the place with the scant mist was the Death Valley's exit. The two of them looked at each other and laughed. They had finally made it out of Death Valley alive. Luckily, I was able to get out. If I were to be lost inside, it would be very difficult to get out. Su Mayan had a feeling that he had survived a calamity. Why? Was it that serious? Feng Zhiyao didn't think that the Death Valley was scary. Because at night, the white mist will turn into black mist and the miasma will deepen. Therefore, it will be extremely difficult to smoothly walk out of the Death Valley. Su Mayan stood with his hands behind his back and sighed. All right, enough. I'm hungry. Feng Zhiyao's stomachapter growled nonstop, and she shyly placed both her hands on top of her stomachapter. At this moment, she had a kind of silly, innocent feeling. Cousin Sister Zhiyao, can I call you Yaoer? That. The 4 words are too long to say. Su Mayan looked at her beautiful face, his heart thumping, so he could not help but ask her. Her voice was soft and long, like a light feather brushing against his skin, very pleasant and pleasant to hear. Sure. No matter what, the two of them had experienced the predicament of the Death Valley. Feng Zhiyao had also chapter-arranged his opinion of her. Thus she nodded her head lightly. To her, a name was just a code name. Yaoer, I heard them looking for us. Let's leave this place quickly and reunite with them. Su Mayan's ears were extremely sharp. He could already hear the clear sounds of horse hooves mixed together with the uniform sounds of footsteps, as well as the barking of dogs. He was inwardly alarmed. Why were there uniform footsteps? Could it be that a guard team had been dispatched? But which chapter prince's guard would it be? And barking? Could it be the king of Jing? Su Mayan guessed in his heart. It was almost dusk. When Feng Zhiyao looked at the sky, she immediately became anxious. Damn it. Now that she had agreed to meet again, would Li Jinran be angry? Yaoer, are you all right? Why did he hear King of Jing Xinyuan Haoyu's voice? Very good. It could be said that he was safe. Feng Zhiyao thought. Why would Xinyuan Haoyu appear in the Autumn Wave stable? What happened to your shoulder? When Xingyuan asked, do you want me to show it to you? No need. Feng Zhiyao shook her head. She had already dealt with it herself. She did not want to trouble others. Young Master Su is here too? But what happened to your eyes? Hearing her light tone, Xinyuan Haoyu thought that the injury shouldn't be too heavy, and he thus felt at ease. Then, as if he had just seen Su Mayan, he smiled at Su Mayan and greeted him. When he saw Su Mayan's eyes, a hint of playfulness flashed past them. Could this have been beaten by Yaoer? Only now did the others notice why Su Mayan had been so secretive before, and did not show his face. Yeah, Yaoer and I rode on horses and entered the Death Valley by accident. These eyes. He accidentally injured himself. Thus, Su Mayan looked at Feng Zhiyao meaningfully as worry flashed past her eyes. The wound on her shoulder should be okay, right? He didn't care about his eyes at all. Men who fall in love are idiots anyway. Su Mayan was about to enter. Why would His Highness bring his guards to the Autumn Wave stable? Could it be that His Highness King of Jing is also here for the horse race? Su Mayan laughed. That panda, I was not one bit affected by his chapter arm. It was only because I could not find your figures that I managed to get someone to report to His Highness the King of Jing. He brought the dog seer chapter squad here. Beitang Ziqian looked at Feng Zhiyao, and at the moment, she was still wearing his outer robes. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Su Mayan had really set his eyes on a woman that the King of Qi did not want. Chapter 73 Part 1's Stop. Su Mayan suddenly called out to Wan Sanzi, telling him to stop the carriage. Young Master Su? This is not even the mighty heavenly castle yet. Wan Sanzi was curious. Why did the young Master Su get confused? Parking here? Someone is following us, Su Mayan said indifferently. He then opened the curtain and gently jumped down the carriage. Why are you following me? Su Mayan's voice pierced through his internal energy, causing the leaves on the trees around him to rustle. You're coveting someone else's item. A black shadow of sword chi shot forward like a rainbow towards Su Mayan. What? Can you explain it clearly? Su Mayan looked at the tall side of the man's face, and for a moment, he didn't know who he was. Oomph! The black handsome shadow's blade shone with a blue light under the bright moonlight. The sword chi that was infused with inner strength shot out towards Su Mayan. If it was in the past, Su Mayan did not need to dodge to deal with the incoming person, but today, he had spent 2 mu chapter of his innate chi in the Death Valley. Thus, other than dodging, he used a profound movement to chapternique to fly away. However, no matter how hard he tried to dodge, the sword chi was not as powerful as that man's sword chi. Young Master Su. Wan Sanzi was so scared that he was dazed by the amount of blood on Su Mayan's right shoulder. You should be glad that you did not cut your right arm. Remember, do not 2 chapter anything that is not yours. The handsome figure's voice was as cold as ice. However, Su Mayan did not let him succeed. He struck back fiercely with his palm, causing blood to ooze out of the corner of his mouth. The hand that was chaptering his heart trembled, and he attempted to jump away. Who are you? Why did you harm this young master? When Su Mayan heard the man's words before he left, he was extremely angry. Ha ha ha, that person's face was completely expressionless. Su Mayan thought, could it be that his skin was fake, that he was a human skin mask? After the man finished laughing, he looked at Su Mayan with his wild and cold eyes, and then laughed madly and left. Young Master Su, young Master Su. Wan Sanzi's face was pale as he looked at Su Mayan's bloodied right arm. Quick, take me to see your big miss. Su Mayan thought that if he did not quickly tend to his wounds, his right arm would really be crippled. And this place was extremely far from the mighty heavenly castle, so he could only return to the Prime Minister's mansion to look for Feng Zhiyao to treat the wound on his right arm. Oh, okay. Wan Sanzi immediately went forward to support Su Mayan and helped him up onto the carriage. He sat on the carriage and rushed back to Prime Minister's mansion. Feng Zhiyao never would have thought that Su Mayan would come again so soon after she took a bath, not to mention that he had brought injury with him. I say, cousin, did you offend someone and they want to chapter up off your arm as a warning? As Feng Zhiyao helped him treat the wound on his right arm, she also coldly teased him. That's not the case. Su Mayan gently shook his head. He too was puzzled. If it was something related to the trade, the person would not warn him like that. It was truly strange. Could it be that you forcefully took away my little sister's innocence? So, Feng Zhiyao continued to guess without reserve. Yaoer, stop guessing. I'm hungry. This little girl definitely had nothing to do after eating her fill, so she said it all. Instead, she ate roasted chapterakan, and perhaps even ate a lot of delicious food after returning home. Now that he was a man, the 5 Viscera Temple began to protest, and she was still beside him, talking sarcastically. All right, I don't have any delicacies here. Hongmi, go bring young Master Su a bowl of porridge. Feng Zhiyao's words almost made Su Mayan spit blood in anger. She was 13 years old, had a clean background, a pretty face, and was well-educated and well-trained. Feng Zhiyao was very satisfied with her training. WHI chapter was why he was able to see that she did not let Hongmi leave, but rather asked her to wait on him at the side instead. When Hongmi left, Su Mayan glared at Feng Zhiyao. I'm so good that I bought you a roasted chapterkin to eat. Yet, you're treating me to a bowl of porridge? Su Mayan muttered in dissatisfaction. It's good that you have something to eat. Just be satisfied with what you have. Feng Zhiyao lazily glanced at him, standing up and pouring himself a cup of green tea. Ziyun, what did the doctor say about third young Miss's injuries? Feng Zhiyao asked Ziyun, who had just returned from gathering information. The doctor has seen. The third young Miss is only injured. You just need to recuperate. Ziyun lowered his hands and reported. Then did third Miss perform any unusual actions? Feng Zhiyao asked again. He felt that it was a little strange. Then was that stab really just an injury? The third Miss is calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. She asked the housekeeper to serve her. Ziyun said indifferently. She was also puzzled. Under normal circumstances, when her mother was being forced into a corner by the Guan and Chiu Academy, she would not cry or make a ruckus. This was truly too strange. She has developed intelligence after suffering some setbacks. Send someone to keep an eye on her. And you need to find out about Jiyu's background as soon as possible. Feng Zhiyao knew that Ziyun had a way to do all of these, so she did not hide it from her. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyun nodded. All of this was just a piece of cake for her. This porridge is really fragrant. Su Mayan waited for Hongmi to bring it over, then elegantly tasted it with a spoon. The taste is rechapter, smooth and delicious yaoer. You really know how to enjoy yourself. If it's delicious, then eat more. Feng Zhiyao laughed and then yawned. Therefore, Su Mayan's appetite was great, and he ate 3 bowls in one go. Yaoer, I'll be going back now. Su Mayan unwillingly glanced at Feng Zhiyao. He thought that Feng Zhiyao would at least say something to keep him here, but who knew that the little girl had already closed her eyes and was dreaming of Dukeshou. Ziyun, Hongmi, when your young miss wakes up, tell her that no matter what, I will take care of her. All right, farewell. Su Mayan chaptered as Feng Zhiyao laid on the soft kuchapter, before turning his head and leaving the begonia garden in 3 steps. Sister Ziyun, could it be that the young Master Su has set his eyes on our young miss? She whispered. Hongmi, it's best if we don't talk about our master's matter. We should focus on our own affairs. Ziyun kindly reminded her. Yes, thank you Sister Ziyun for the help. Then I will take down the utensils and go to bed. Hongmi knew that Ziyun was the young Miss' personal maid and would definitely have a way to have the young Miss sleep on her bed later. Okay, go ahead. Ziyun smiled and nodded, but she looked at Feng Zhiyao with an appreciative expression. Why would Su Chapter, a smart girl, have an intimate relationship with so many men? But she didn't understand her master's intentions? Why did you want her to stand by the side of the young miss in the place of the real Ziyun? Could it be that there was something on her that this grandpa cared about? Ziyun, is it because this lady is too beautiful? Feng Zhiyao astonishingly opened his eyes, shocking Ziyun. Therefore, Ziyun quickly kneeled down and said, First Miss, you misunderstood. Ziyun didn't mean it that way, but because Hongmi had asked that question just now, this servant had taken a closer look at eldest Mississippi. Oh my God, the young miss hadn't fallen asleep yet. I'm resting with my eyes closed. I never said I was asleep. Feng Zhiyao said in a low voice as he took her hand and elegantly stood up, looking down at Ziyun. Ziyun, tell the person behind you. I am not a woman he can control. Feng Zhiyao coldly looked at the kneeling Ziyun, and after finishing his cold words, he walked into the room like a lotus flower. Ziyun was startled. What does eldest miss mean by this? Should she go see me again? However, I did not summon her. If she were to go, I will be punished. Forget it. First Miss had been good to him. It was better for her to stay by her side for the time being. After thinking about it, Ziyun got up from the ground, closed the door, and walked out. Feng Zhiyao lay on the bed, unable to fall asleep no matter what. As she thought about how Su Mayan had kissed her, her face burned intensely hot. However, she naturally liked Su Mayan as a beautiful man. Thinking of this, she felt relieved. At this time, Situ Yele would definitely not come tonight. Thus, Feng Jiao immediately got up, put on a set of white clothes, tied his hair up in a simple bun, and lightly jumped out of the window without a sound. After confirming that no one had noticed, she used her light skill to fly to Tsuha house. Eldest miss, why are you here so late at night? Why did Tao Jixin jump in fright when he saw the white-clothed Feng Jiao? I'm not here to look for you. I'm here for Li Jinran, Feng Jiao said with a smile. He never thought that the appearance of this hour would scare the Uncle Xian. All right, since that's the case, then go quickly. Seeing that Feng Jiao was not in a rush, Tao Jixin decided to take care of his own matters. Under Feng Jiao's instructions, the Tsuha house had become the first inn in the Nanshao Kingdom to serve him 24 hours a day. Feng Jiao nodded his head. His profound rippling steps became more and more wonderful, to the point that he managed to arrive at Qing Lian Little Foundation within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. At the moment, the candles in Li Jinran's room were flickering, showing that he was still awake. After Feng Jiao knocked on the door, he opened the door with the wooden wheel chapter air. Jiao, why would you be here at this time? Li Jinran opened the door and saw that it was actually Feng Jiao. She looked at her gently with a few surprises. Her clear and handsome face was not as pale and weak as when he first saw her, but was slightly flushed, like the red morning glow, dazzling. What is it? Aren't you happy to see me? Feng Jiao smiled at him, and then teased. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about you, a young lady who has yet to leave the pavilion. You shouldn't have Mu chapter of an impact coming to my place at this hour. Li Jinran cared about her. I didn't have any good influence from the start, but now I don't want to stay overnight. Feng Jiao gave him a comforting look. I came over to take a look at you. Then I won't be coming over tomorrow. Feng Jiao said again. Why isn't he coming again tomorrow? Li Jinran didn't know what had happened to him, but he felt that he hadn't seen her for a day, as if it had been 3 years. I have something to do. Feng Jiao bent down, leaned forward, and lightly pecked Li Jinran's lips. I just came to see you, then I'll be going back. Jiao. Li Jinran's mind was shaken by Feng Jiao's flower-like smile. He looked at her in a daze, and the 2 chapter of his lips made his beautiful face unnaturally red. Jinran, do you miss me? Today, she hadn't come in broad daylight, so he must have missed her. Thinking of this, her small face brimmed with a sweet smile. Li Jinran was very honest. After making a sound, her face blushed even more. Jinran is good, hee. Feng Jiao was very happy. She once again kissed his soft and tender lips, and her small hands mischapteriously 2-chaptered his chapterist. Ugh, said Jiao. Li Jinran let out a light snort, opened her lips slightly, and allowed Feng Jiao's lilac tongue to slowly probe in, slowly responding to her kiss. It was as if they were just kissing to feel a chapter other's feelings. After a while, Feng Jiao let go of him. She buried her head in his lap and raised her head to look at him. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the person beneath him. His chapter-arming face was filled with smiles. Li Jinran smiled warmly like a spring breeze, raising her hands to rub her shiny black hair. Looking at Feng Jiao's beautiful face with a smile that was like a flower, her heart was filled with joy. It feels good to kiss. Feng Jiao teased him with a smile on her lips. Their gazes met, and smiles of satisfaction could be seen on their faces. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.